Chapter 541. If I'm not wrong, he's Yu Qianchou. The mysterious woman transmitted her voice. He's Yu Qianchou? How can he have such a high cultivation? However, his ruthless style of doing things is similar to that fella in the legends. The one-armed old man said in disbelief. Yu Qianchou has been the person that the loose cultivators talked about the most during this period of time. To think that he dared to come here under such circumstances. He's quite bold. What's real and what's fake? I wonder which one is the real one, the mysterious woman muttered. Miss, what did you say? The one-armed elder asked in surprise. He didn't understand what she meant. She had just said that this person was Yu Qianchou. Why couldn't she tell the real one from the fake one now? Yu Qianchou hovered in the air and narrowed his eyes at the one-armed elder. He was prepared to fight. What made him wary was that he didn't know how high this mysterious elder's cultivation was. When the other party casually swung out his sword, there was a faint sound of wind and thunder. This was something he had never seen before, even when fighting against cultivators at the late tribulation stage. Could this old fellow be at the soul formation stage? Yu Qianchou was slightly alarmed. He secretly locked onto Utopia with his divine sense. If he couldn't do it, he would leave. What surprised him was that after the one-armed elder attacked, he only looked at him deeply before turning and retreating to the side. As for the mysterious veiled woman, she leisurely rose into the air like Chang'e flying to the moon. When she rose into the air, the veil on her head tilted slightly. Yu Qianchou could clearly sense that the woman was looking at him. Following that, a green figure disappeared into the night sky. What was this woman's background? And what was the relationship between the one-armed elder and them? Yu Qianchou couldn't figure it out. In the pavilion, the one-armed elder was drinking alone under the incandescent lamp. He was holding the wine jar that Yu Qianchou had given him. It was as if nothing had happened. Damn it! If I had known earlier, I would have poisoned the wine and let you drink slowly. Yu Qianchou gnashed his teeth in hatred. He thought to himself, old man, don't be so smug. This wine isn't that tasty. Floating in the air, he transmitted his voice to Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing. Go back. His figure immediately shot into the ghost manor. Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing glanced at each other. Previously, Boss had said that he was in the core formation stage, but later on, it was shown that his cultivation level was far higher than that. The fact that he could fly in the air was proof enough. Now he simply used the voice transmission technique, which could only be done by cultivators at the early stage of the crossing calamity stage. The two of them were a little excited because with the protection of such an expert, ordinary people in the cultivation world wouldn't dare to touch them in the future. This was equivalent to a big backer. The two of them did not dare to hesitate and quickly chased after him on their swords. Yan Lan and the other girls nodded and followed him. The rogue cultivators in the surroundings looked at each other. They never expected that someone would dare to make a move in the ghost manor. Someone asked, who knows the two rogue cultivators following Yo Yid? I think I've seen them somewhere before. The taller one is called Fu Chun and the shorter one is called Qin Jiaxing. They are just small fries in the foundation building stage. What kind of *T luck did these two fellows run into? They actually managed to find such a powerful backer. Another person replied. Everyone who was listening revealed an envious expression. They were very, very envious, not just envious. Although the identity of a cultivator in a famous sect had many benefits, and everyone was eager to join it. However, the founders of those famous sects were almost all rogue cultivators. Moreover, they were talented rogue cultivators. There was no other reason. Most of the cultivators who came from sects followed the cultivation methods of their sects step by step. Within the framework drawn by their ancestors, very few could surpass their ancestors. Although the life of a rogue cultivator was hard and tiring, those talented rogue cultivators were different. They all relied on their extremely high talent to walk a path that belonged to them. Only then could they establish their own sects and compete with the cultivators in the world. Among the top 10 cultivators in the world, which one of them wasn't a rogue cultivator? Among the rogue cultivators, they had never heard of someone named Nyo Yid. However, judging from his powerful skills in various situations today, he might also be a talented rogue cultivator. To be able to follow such a person, once he established his own sect, the person who followed him would definitely have an extraordinary status in the sect. How could those rogue cultivators who had attached themselves to famous sects and clans compare to them? That was why everyone envied Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing. If they could befriend each other now, they might have a way out in the future. What surprised Yu Qianchou was that the ruthless magistrate that he casually mentioned became Niu Yid's nickname. Moreover, because of his fight with the one-armed old man, it didn't take long for the news to spread throughout the cultivation world. Returning to the small courtyard with 6 rooms, Yu Qianchou sent the 6 girls away and called Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing to his room. Seeing that he was serious, the 2 of them couldn't help but look at each other. They didn't know why their boss was looking for them. Yu Qianchou took out 2 storage bags and threw them to the 2 of them. The 2 of them caught the bags and looked at each other. Then they immediately injected their divine senses into the bags. If they didn't look, they wouldn't know. Once they saw it, they were shocked. Their eyes widened and they couldn't speak. There were so many spirit stones in the bags. For them it was indeed a lot. They had never seen so many spirit stones in their lives. The 2 of them looked at Yu Qianchou in confusion. They didn't know why he gave them so many spirit stones. There are 2 million top-grade spirit stones in each storage bag. It's enough for you to use. Yu Qianchou smiled. For us? The 2 of them asked almost at the same time. Don't worry. Yu Qianchou took out 2 purple true restriction breaking pills and threw them to the 2 of them. It's your luck that you met me. Today I'll help you break through to the early stage of tribulation passing. The 2 of them were dumbfounded. They thought they had heard wrong. Cultivation was about progressing step by step. The 2 of them were only in the middle stage of foundation establishment. How could they break through to the early stage of tribulation passing? Don't doubt me. Yu Qianchou pointed at the purple spirit pills in their hands and said, the spirit pills in your hands are called restriction-breaking pills. They were made according to a recipe passed down from ancient times. Because the spirit herbs needed to make them are extremely difficult to gather, they have never appeared in the cultivation world. That's why very few people know about them. Although the 2 of them didn't have high cultivation levels when they saw the halo on the spirit pills, they were a bit confused. Just by looking at the quality of the spirit pills, it was obvious that they were made by a top-notch alchemist. A normal alchemist would have a hard time making spirit pills with a halo. Fu Chun held it in her hands and said excitedly, Boss, do you mean that this restriction-breaking pill can increase a person's cultivation level? Qin Jiaxing smelled the fragrance of the spirit pills obsessively. Take the spirit pills, catalyze the medicinal properties, and then absorb the spiritual energy inside the spirit stones. When the time comes, you will know if I'm telling the truth. Yu Qianchou raised his hand and said, Give it a try. Yes. The 2 of them nodded. They were so excited that they didn't know what to say. Without hesitation, they stuffed the spirit pills into their mouths and sat down cross-legged to regulate their breathing. The 2 of them didn't have the slightest doubt because they felt that their boss had no reason to harm them. Moreover, with their status, neither of them was worth 2 million high-grade spirit stones. Spending 4 million high-grade spirit stones to harm insignificant people like them would be more likely to be crazy. With their boss's cultivation level, it would be easy for him to kill them. There was no need to go through so much trouble. Not long after, the 2 of them started to turn red. Hot air came out of their mouths and noses. They couldn't help but tremble. They looked like they were in pain. Yu Qianchou said in a low voice, Hurry up and absorb the spirit stones. The 2 of them trembled and quickly took out the spirit stones from their storage pouches to absorb the spirit stones. One after another. Not long after, the painful expression on their faces became comfortable. At the same time, there was a hint of surprise as if they enjoyed this feeling. 2 hours later, the 2 of them opened their eyes one after another. They looked at each other and jumped up. Qin Jiaxing stammered, I broke through to the late stage of foundation establishment. Fu Chun was also excited, Me too. Calm down, what will make you excited is yet to come. Yu Qianchou sat on a chair and said disapprovingly. He placed 2 piles of spirit pills on the side table. In each pile were 7 purple limit-breaking pills and 3 colorful spirit pills with the halo of a rainbow-colored pill. The latter was the 7 treasures pill made from the rainbow-colored lingji. It was the best spirit pill for breaking through bottlenecks. From foundation establishment to core formation, nascent soul, and tribulation passing stage, there are 3 bottlenecks. These 3 rainbow-colored spirit pills are rare spirit pills for breaking through bottlenecks. You can take one for each bottleneck. Yu Qianchou smiled and knocked on the table. Each of you take one pile. It should help you break through to the early stage of tribulation passing stage. Damn it. I have spirit stones and spirit pills, don't let me down. The two of them were so excited that they didn't know what to say. Happiness came too suddenly. They never thought such a good thing could happen. They thought they were dreaming. Fu Chun took a deep breath and bowed. Fu Chun will obey your orders from now on. Then she calmly took the 10 spirit pills that belonged to her. Qin Jiaxing stared blankly for a moment before he quickly bowed and saluted. Qin Jiaxing will definitely listen to boss's instructions from now on. Then he quickly took the pills on the tea table. Yu Qianchou smiled and didn't say anything. He raised his hand and gestured for them to continue. The two of them looked at each other and stood side by side. They bowed to him again and continued to take the spirit pills to absorb the spirit qi. After the two of them closed their eyes, Yu Qianchou's face became expressionless, and his fingers tapped on the surface of the coffee table. The purple restriction-breaking pill that the two of them had consumed was the same as the one that most of the members of Utopia had consumed. It could rapidly raise one's cultivation to the early stage of tribulation passing. The only flaw of this pill was that although it could help speed up cultivation, the person who took this pill would only be able to reach the late stage of tribulation passing stage. There was almost no hope of breaking through to the soul formation stage. The white restriction breaking pill could avoid this flaw, but there was another flaw. Every time they took one, they would be stiff and unable to move for a month. If the two of them took the white restriction breaking pill, they would need at least 8 months to break through to the early stage of tribulation passing stage. What he lacked the most right now was time. It was urgent. Chapter 542. Jumping out of the Chinese cultivation world was a hasty decision. At first he was worried that he had made the wrong move. But now he could confidently tell himself that this trip was worth it. He learned many things he didn't know. It also gave him a very serious sense of crisis. Looking at the problem from this perspective, he had a lot of feelings about the overall situation of the cultivation world. Previously, when he made a ruckus in the closed Chinese cultivation world, he was indeed a frog at the bottom of a well. The outside world was very vast and spectacular. There were indeed many experts in the cultivation world. There were many things that the Chinese cultivation world couldn't come into contact with. Combining the situation of the Chinese cultivation world and the countries here, he could now say with certainty that the Chinese cultivation world was definitely not a match for the combined forces of the various countries. Not to mention the soul formation experts, just the final stage tribulation passing experts alone were countless. The various countries didn't even use their true strength in the war against the Chinese cultivation world. Why was it like this? Yu Qianchou felt a lingering fear just thinking about it. It was obvious that they were waiting for something, for Bai Chongqun to go to the Eastern Holy Land. Yu Qianchou now truly understood Master Bai Chongqun's position in the cultivation world. As long as Bai Chongqun was still in the cultivation world, the entire world wouldn't be chaotic. Perhaps Bai Chongqun only needed a glance to scare all the experts in the world into trembling with fear. No one would dare to move. Yin Baikong's cultivation was high, right? The World Commerce Association's power was great, right? He still kept a low profile, afraid of angering a certain someone. Even if he didn't say anything and just watched coldly from the demon ghost region. Whether it was this late-stage soul formation expert or that late-stage soul formation expert, who would dare to use the full strength of their country to attack the Chinese cultivation world. No one dared to step forward. That #1 expert in the world definitely didn't blink when he killed people. His iron-blooded methods had already deterred the entire world. Who could make all the soul formation experts in the world obediently gather together with just one word? Thinking about it, it could only be Bai Chongqun. Yu Qianchou even suspected that the so-called East Sea War was just his master deliberately trying to scare those so-called experts. Because the rumors of the star bead appeared too suddenly, the experts from various countries were all restless. At that time, Bai Chongqun went on a killing spree and killed more than 10 deity transformation stage experts in a row. Immediately, everyone was so frightened that they didn't dare to act blindly without thinking, and all of them became well-behaved. Just to prevent soul formation experts from interfering in the war? If it was before he came to the various countries, Yu Qianchou might have believed this saying. But now he didn't believe it. Did Bai Chongqun not know the strength of each country? Even if the soul formation experts didn't intervene, The Chinese cultivation world wouldn't be a match for the combined forces of the various countries. Wouldn't the Battle of the East Sea be unnecessary? Bai Changchun shouldn't be such a boring person, right? Why didn't the other countries attack the Chinese cultivation world? They only sent people to test the waters. Clearly, Bai Changchun's threat in the East Sea was effective. Although he said that the other soul formation cultivators wouldn't intervene, he wouldn't intervene either. However, he had shown that he wanted to protect the Chinese cultivation world. Who would dare to bite the bullet and come? Wouldn't that be courting death? Xianxia now had a bold guess. The rumor about the star orb came so suddenly that Bai Changchun didn't seem to expect it. But he suddenly gathered all the soul formation experts in the world to threaten them, but he didn't invite the second strongest expert in the world, Wen Lanfeng. When he was about to leave the monster ghost region and there was no successor for the torture envoy, he left Wen Lanfeng behind. Could it be that the old man decided to let Wen Lanfeng inherit the position of the torture envoy of the monster ghost region? Thinking back to the last time at the Baiwan embassy in Dayong City, Nongzhu had told Wen Rui why Bai Changchun didn't invite Wen Lanfeng to the East Sea. However, Nongzhu hesitated and didn't explain it. It seemed that there was some hidden reason. Judging from this, the possibility was very high. In the cultivation world, apart from Bai Changchun, it seemed that only Wen Lanfeng could intimidate the heroes of the world. However, his sudden appearance seemed to have changed Bai Changchun's mind. He who had never accepted disciples accepted him as his disciple. Furthermore, he had already hinted that he would be the next torture enforcer. Did Bai Changchun think that his achievements in the future would be higher than Wen Lanfeng's? Even Yu Qianchou didn't believe this reason. He was an expert at the late soul formation stage. He thought about it until his scalp went numb. He couldn't figure out what the old man wanted, so he simply stopped thinking about it. Maybe he was worrying too much. Master didn't have so many plans at all. Otherwise, he would have killed all the soul formation experts. But he was very sure of one thing. Master was determined to go to the Holy East Land. Once he left the cultivation world, all the countries would definitely join forces to attack the cultivation world of Wuxia. Not only the cultivation world but the secular world would also experience a great calamity. A war to divide the interests of Wuxia was inevitable. At that time the world would be in chaos. After understanding the general situation, Yu Qianchou calculated that it would not be long before his master left for the Eastern Holy Land. He immediately felt that he was pressed for time. There was only 1 or 2 years left, which was nothing for the long life of a cultivator. But for him it was really urgent. In 1 or 2 years, once the cultivation world of Wuxia was defeated. If he didn't have enough strength to operate in the cultivation world and support Shi Wenguang's army would be the first to bear the brunt. Although the cultivation world wouldn't directly intervene, if the armies of hundreds of countries joined forces, no matter how good Shi Wenguang was at fighting, it would be hard for him to deal with them. His years of hard work would go down the drain. Yu Qianchou sat on the chair and smiled bitterly. To be honest, before leaving the cultivation world of Wuxia, he didn't care much about who won or lost. But now, for the sake of his own interests, he couldn't let the cultivation world of Wuxia defeat them. He had to help them even if he didn't want to. Regardless of what his master was thinking, he had to prepare for a rainy day and make preparations just in case. In the next 1 or 2 years he had to weaken the strength of the countries as much as possible. Thinking of this, he took out a red spirit pill and played with it in his hand. When he first refined this pseudo-limit breaking pill, it was prepared for the Daoyuo sect. But now it seemed that the Daoyuo sect was a force that couldn't be ignored in the cultivation world of Wuxia, so there was no hurry to deal with them. This pseudo-limit breaking pill might have to be used on someone else. As he pondered, he sat on the chair until the next day, when Fu Chan and Qin Jiaxing forcefully increased their cultivation to the early stage of the tribulation passing stage. The two of them stood up excitedly. Roar. They couldn't help but let out 2 clear roars, causing the room to buzz. Under the grapevines outside, the 6 women were wondering why the 3 men were hiding in the room for an entire day. Could it be that they were gay? When they suddenly heard the 2 clear roars, their expressions changed. From the deafening roars, they could tell that the cultivation of the 2 people who made the sounds was much higher than theirs. When did other people enter the room? In the ghost manner, many wandering cultivators looked over. Yu Qianchou leaned back on the chair and looked at the 2 of them with half-opened eyes. He smiled slightly. It was understandable how the 2 of them felt. Anyone who spent a day to break through from the foundation establishment stage to the tribulation passing stage would be overjoyed. They had seen many similar things in Utopia. Of course, it was a good thing, but what the two of them didn't know was that they basically had no chance of breaking through to the soul formation stage in this lifetime. He didn't know if the two of them would have other thoughts after they found out. Therefore, Xianxia didn't tell the two of them about the drawbacks of the purple limit-breaking pill. Xianxia knew that he might be a little unreasonable, but his way of thinking might be a little cruel to others. His reasoning was very simple. The two of them were wandering cultivators with mediocre aptitudes. If they hadn't met him in this chaotic cultivation world, what chance would they have of increasing their cultivation to the early stage of the tribulation passing stage in this lifetime? The chance was probably zero. Not to mention cultivating to the soul formation stage. That's right, he wanted to use the two of them, so he took out a few million spirit stones to increase their cultivation to the tribulation passing stage. However, Xianxia thought that this was an opportunity for them. Others might not have this opportunity. Some things might make people unhappy if they were too clear about it. For their own good, his own good and mine, it was better to hide it. He thought that this kind of concealment was rational and kind. How's the effect? Are there any adverse effects on your body? Check it carefully. Xianxia leaned his arm on the tea table, his head half propped up as he smiled. The two of them nodded and quickly checked their bodies. Apart from the damage caused by forcefully increasing their cultivation, they were fine. Boss, there's no problem. Fu Chun clenched her fists and said excitedly. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that such a day would come. Boss, there's no problem with me either. Qin Jiaxing kept rubbing his face with his palms. He was indescribably excited. Xianxia nodded and smiled as he looked at the two of them checking their cultivation. After a while, the two of them calmed down a little. Fu Chun brought the storage bag over respectfully and said, Boss, there's still about 800,000 high-grade spirit stones. Qin Jiaxing didn't dare to keep it to himself and brought it over respectfully. Xianxia sat up straight and waved his hand with a smile. I'm an early-stage tribulation passing cultivator now. I'm no longer a poor itinerant cultivator. How can I not have some money? Keep it for yourself. The two of them were a little embarrassed. Qin Jiaxing scratched his head and giggled. This was happiness. In the past, they were just poor itinerant cultivators. I still stand by my words. As long as you follow me sincerely, I guarantee that you'll have a good life. Xianxia stood up and patted their shoulders. Help me do things well. Good days are yet to come. The two of them didn't know what to say. They just kept nodding and giggling. After I made my move last night, I'm sure many itinerant cultivators will come to fawn over you. Xianxia walked around the two of them and said, if they find out that you're early-stage tribulation-passing cultivators, they'll be even more envious. You can tell everyone about the limit-breaking pill. Chapter 543. Both of them were shocked. Although their previous cultivation levels were low, they were still clear about one thing. If such a treasure was made public, it would probably cause great trouble. Boss, you have to think twice. Fu Chun cupped her hands and advised earnestly, this limit-breaking pill is really too magical. Once outsiders know about it, I'm afraid all the cultivators in the world will flock to snatch it. Just like that Xianxia, because of these two treasured sabers, ended up being chased and robbed by cultivators from various countries. That's right, that's right. Qin Jiaxing nodded repeatedly and said very sincerely, Boss, this kind of thing really can't be leaked. Such a precious treasure will really bring about a fatal disaster. I'm not afraid of the itch when I'm covered with lice. Xianxia smiled self-deprecatingly and waved his hand at the two who didn't understand, saying, just do as I say, nothing will happen. The two looked at each other and showed expressions of listening attentively. After all, they had just said that they would obey his orders. If they were to be long-winded, they would be suspected of being disobedient. Moreover, the two of them were now quite convinced of this boss. Who in the world could raise the cultivation level of a foundation establishment cultivator to the tribulation passing stage in one day? They didn't know whether others had this ability or not. In any case, they had never heard of it. Such a miraculous method, coupled with his powerful skills and mysterious origin, made the two of them fear and respect him. Xianxia was very satisfied with their performance and said slowly, if someone asks you about the improvement of your cultivation level, It's okay for you to disclose the limit-breaking pill. Just say that I'm going to make a lot of it, and on the day of the treasure basin gathering, I will sell it to the cultivators in the world. Of course, some things can't be said completely. What could be said and what could not be said he carefully explained to the two of them. After figuring it out, the two of them looked at each other. They didn't know what the boss was going to do, but it wasn't good for them to ask, so they promised to do as he said. At this moment, the room suddenly darkened, and there was a faint sound of thunder in the sky outside. Xianxia's expression changed slightly. He glanced at the two of them and quickly opened the door and walked out. Yanlan and the other girls were looking around the courtyard. When they saw Xianxia coming out, they all bowed and greeted him, Mr. Xianxia waved his hand at them and looked up into the sky. Dark clouds were rolling overhead and there were lightning bolts intertwining in the sky. Lightning snakes flickered in and out of the dark clouds. This was especially true for the area above their heads, where the clouds were as black as ink and lightning snakes were flashing. The 6 girls looked at each other. They had seen this phenomenon many times in the Misty Rain Tower. Yanlan said in surprise, "It's a tribulation cloud. Could it be that someone is going through a tribulation in this ghost manor?" When Qin Jiaxing and Fu Chun heard this, their expressions changed. Of course, they knew who was going to undergo the tribulation. The former asked fearfully, "Boss, what should we do?" The two of them had never experienced such a scene before, so they were more or less afraid. They couldn't help but ask their boss for help. It's not a big deal to go through the tribulation in the early stage. Xianxia had seen many people go through the tribulation in Utopia, so he was already used to it. There was indeed nothing to be afraid of in the early stage. Even if he was going through the tribulation himself, although he was struck by lightning and fainted, he could just sleep in a daze and muddle through it. It was nothing. "Let's go into the mountain. It's big enough there." Xianxia flew towards the back of the mountain. The two of them didn't dare to hesitate and quickly followed him. Seeing that Qin Jiaxing and Fu Chun could actually fly in the air, coupled with what the 3 of them said just now, the 6 girls were so shocked that their jaws dropped. After a while, Xianxia stammered, Could it be that Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing are going through the tribulation? How is this possible?" It wasn't just the 6 of them. Many people in the ghost manor were also looking at the sky and wondering who was going through the tribulation. When they suddenly saw Qin Jiaxing and Fu Chun flying in the air, they all rubbed their eyes, thinking that they were seeing things. After asking the people around them, they realized that it was very likely to be true. How was this possible? Many people flew into the air, wanting to follow them to see what was going on. In the next few days, Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing, whose cultivations had risen to the early stage of tribulation passing, had a comfortable life. The two of them arrogantly scurried around the ghost manor, accepting the flattery of the loose cultivators. Although they were going around to complete the task given by their boss, the feeling of being flattered by everyone made the two of them feel a little complacent. They didn't know who they were anymore. Xianxia really couldn't stand it anymore. Their morals. Naturally, he had to pour some cold water on them to wake them up. He seriously warned the two of them. The two of them had only reached the early stage of tribulation passing, and their real strength was still far from the early stage of tribulation passing. If any powerful early-stage nascent soul cultivator couldn't stand the sight of you, they would definitely kill you. Don't be too arrogant. Xianxia's words weren't alarmist words. How could a cultivator who had risen to the early stage of tribulation passing in a day compare to a cultivator who had cultivated for 100 years, or even hundreds of years? Not to mention the profoundness of their cultivation arts, just their actual combat strength alone was a world of difference. A slightly stronger early-stage nascent soul cultivator wouldn't have a problem killing them. The level of one's cultivation didn't necessarily determine one's strength. This wasn't just a saying. Xianxia understood this very well. Precisely because he understood this, the members in Utopia who had forcefully raised their cultivation were forced to continuously train with all their might. This was so that when they faced actual combat, they would be able to minimize the number of casualties to the greatest extent. After being reprimanded, the two of them knew that their boss wasn't lying. After their minds became clearer, they restrained themselves a lot. In these few days, the ruthless magistrate Niu Yid would also walk around the ghost manor every day. At the same time, the cultivation world's butcher Yu Qianchou would often appear around the fog forest, the secret of entering and leaving the fog forest. As a result, many cultivators were attracted over. However, a butcher was a butcher, and those who were unlucky enough to encounter him rarely managed to escape alive. When a large number of people rushed over, everyone could only watch as he escaped into the fog forest. There was nothing they could do about him. Once everyone relaxed, this fellow became energetic again. Without anyone noticing, he would sneak out to commit crimes. He killed a few people here and there, causing those who suffered losses to want to pull out his tendons and skin him alive. However, this fellow was even more slippery than a loach, and it was very difficult to catch him. At the most, more than 50 late-stage tribulation transcendence experts trapped him in a valley. However, in the end, no one could figure out what was going on. Everyone searched everywhere, but they still couldn't find him. In the end, he still managed to slip away. Then he turned around and appeared somewhere else. He charged into a group of nascent soul cultivators and slaughtered them, killing nearly 100 people in one go. When more than 50 late-stage tribulation transcendence experts rushed over to help, that fellow ran away again. The cultivators of the various countries were filled with hatred. They looked at the heavens speechlessly. They gritted their teeth so hard that they were about to shatter, and they almost burst into tears. So many experts couldn't catch an early-stage tribulation transcendence expert. Furthermore, he often appeared right under their noses. This group of people had lost all their face. Xianxia's strategy was very effective in dealing with this group of people. To sum it up, the enemy was tired, I would disturb. The enemy was strong, I would retreat. The enemy chased, I would run. If anyone was careless, I would be ruthless. Just when Xianxia was causing quite a stir among the various countries, a ruthless judge, Niu Yid, suddenly appeared in the Jinshan country's ghost village. This person's appearance more or less stole the limelight from the butcher Xianxia. The experts of various countries temporarily stopped dealing with Xianxia and focused their attention here. Ordinary cultivators in the cultivation world didn't know who the one-armed old man of the ghost village was, but the higher-ups of the various countries knew. This Niu Yid was actually able to shatter the one-armed old man's flying sword with one palm strike. Furthermore, he had shattered it into powder. It was truly unbelievable. When did such an expert appear in the cultivation world? What shocked them the most was that this Niu Yid was actually able to forcibly raise the cultivation of 2 foundation establishment stage loose cultivators to the early stage of tribulation passing within a day. Many people had seen it with their own eyes. This was simply too inconceivable. Limit-breaking pill. Limit-breaking pill. Limit-breaking pill. What a distant word. It was so distant that people had almost forgotten about it. Legend had it that during the chaotic battles of ancient times, a capable person with special abilities had refined a very overbearing spirit pill in order to gain the upper hand in the battle. It could forcibly raise the cultivation of the cultivators under him to the tribulation passing stage in a short period of time. This was only a legend. As for what exactly was going on, no one knew. They had only vaguely heard that this spirit pill was called the limit-breaking pill. Niu Yid could actually refine the limit-breaking pill. It was said that he could also refine it in large quantities and was even preparing to sell it at the cornucopia gathering in the future. This news was even more shocking than him shattering the one-armed old man's flying sword. Just think about it, which of the various countries' soul formation experts didn't have 1,000 or 800 cultivators under their command? Those with great powers even had tens of thousands of cultivators under their command. There were even some that had close to 100,000 cultivators under their command. For example, Yin Baikong's World Chamber of Commerce. The World Chamber of Commerce had more than 100,000 disciples. Although it was a mix of good and bad, and most of them had low cultivation. But what if they had the limit-breaking pill? 100,000 tribulation-passing experts, oh my God. Just thinking about it made people's blood boil. The headquarters of the World Chamber of Commerce, Cornucopia, God of Wealth Peak. On the God of Wealth Peak, the wind and clouds surged, causing people's clothes to flutter. At this time, the 3 people's emotions were the same, making it impossible for them to calm down. Yin Baikong, dressed in a black robe, stood tall on the peak of the mountain. No matter how strong the wind caused his robe to flutter, he didn't move an inch. His eyes were like an eagle's as he stared in the direction of the Golden Mountain country. However, under his slightly shriveled cheeks, one could clearly see his muscles twitching non-stop. It was obvious that his heart wasn't as calm as it looked. Sikongju and Jing Yuankong silently stood behind their master. Limit-breaking pill. Sikongju's eyes flickered. As Yin Baikong's head disciple, he had followed his master for the longest time. At the same time, he was also his master's most trusted disciple. Some things were secrets between master and disciple. Xikong, is the news reliable? Yin Baikong asked without turning his head. Xikong Ju respectfully replied, "We have planted our spies in the ghost manor. They saw it with their own eyes, so it shouldn't be wrong." Yin Baikong slightly nodded his head with his back facing the two. His voice was still calm as he said, "Xikong, let's put the other matters aside for now. Pick enough capable people and personally go to the Golden Mountain country." Chapter 544. Yes. Xikong Ju answered decisively. He understood that if the limit-breaking pill was really that miraculous, it was too important to world commerce. Yin Baikong gradually turned around. He first glanced at Jing Yuankong, then at Xikong Ju and said, "The limit-breaking pill is extremely important. Logically speaking, I should personally make a trip, but I have to give face to the one-armed geezer, so it's not convenient for me to interfere. Not to mention Wen Lanfeng." Feeling that he had gone off topic, he paused and continued, "It would be best if you can invite that Miao Yi to our world commerce. If not, see if you can buy the limit-breaking pills recipe. It doesn't matter if the price is high as long as it's not too outrageous. In short, before we can guarantee the interests of world commerce, Miao Yud and the limit-breaking pills recipe cannot fall into the hands of others. It's too big of a threat to our world commerce. If necessary, we'd rather destroy it." Disciple understands. Xikong Ju bowed slightly and frowned. What if the lords of other countries interfere? Yin Baikong put his hands behind his back and said, "You don't have to worry about this. One-armed old devil still has Lu Yanqing behind him. The lords of other countries won't run to Ghost Manor without any qualms. Not to mention Wen Lanfeng has already started meeting guests. I'm afraid everyone will have to go to Baiwan Nation first. I'll think of a way to hold them back and give you enough time." Disciple will do his best. Xikong Ju bowed. As for what to do, you have to know your limits. Try not to clash with one-armed old devil. Taking 10,000 steps back, didn't Miao Yid say he's going to sell the limit-breaking pill at the Treasure Basin gathering? If we can stop the others from succeeding before then, when the cornucopia meeting is held with the financial resources of our world commerce, we will also be the biggest winner, Yin Baikong said confidently. Yes. Xikong Ju also became confident. With his master holding back the other experts, he had nothing to worry about. "Yuan Kong, your eldest senior brother and I aren't here, so I'll leave the house to you," Yin Baikong called out. "Disciple will definitely guard the house well and not let master and senior brother have any worries," Jing Yuankong replied. After giving some instructions, Yin Baikong quickly left in the direction of Baiwan Nation and disappeared into the distance. The two brothers also went down the mountain. One continued with his own work, while the other gathered people and prepared to go to the Jinshan Kingdom. In fact, it was not only the World Chamber of Commerce that took action. All the other countries were like cats that smelled blood, sending their most capable disciples and subordinates to the Golden Mountain country. For a time, the Yu Qianchou incident in the Jinshan Kingdom had not been settled yet, and now Miao Yid had stirred up a storm. One wave after another. Those cultivators who could only watch the show and could not get involved couldn't help but sigh. The current cultivation world was really in troubled times. Previously, the cornucopia had been pushed back from the 8th major event to the 9th major event. Now it seemed that it had been pushed back by the limit-breaking pill incident, and the cornucopia could only be demoted to 10th again. Baiwan Nation's sacred land, in the back room of the sacred palace, when Lanfeng slowly walked out of a complex sound transmission array filled with spirit stones. When he was on Obedient Island, he had obtained the coordinates of old ancestor Nan Ming's message formation. Just now, he had informed Obedient Island about the situation. The person he was talking to was Nongzhu, who had nothing better to do. He could imagine the scene of old ancestor Nan Ming shouting at the top of his lungs when he found out. Outside the curved arched door of the back room, when Rui greeted Wen Lanfeng, who had a slight smile on his face. He found that since the last time the old ancestor returned from the demon domain, there would be a smile on his face from time to time. The melancholy that always hung on his face had lightened a lot, as if he had let go of something that could not be resolved in his heart. What puzzled him the most was that although the old ancestor was defeated by Changchun, he often maintained contact with the demon domain. Old ancestor, according to your instructions, the guests who have been waiting for a long time have been arranged to the bank of the heart-cleansing lake, Wen Rui reported as he walked slowly with Wen Lanfeng. Under the bright and hazy light, Wen Lanfeng lost some of his melancholy and appeared somewhat graceful and luxurious. As he walked along the white jade corridor, he asked, "How many people have come?" "Nearly 100 soul formation experts from various countries have come and more are coming," Wen Rui replied. "Oh, only nearly 100? Wen Lanfeng asked faintly, "Has the news that I want to meet the guests spread?" Wen Rui smiled and said, "The news has been released. Old ancestor, do you plan to meet them today?" Wen Lanfeng said disapprovingly, "Wait for another day. Wait for more people. I don't have time to accompany them all day long." This. Wen Rui smiled bitterly, "Old ancestor, this is not good. Some of the people who came early have been waiting for more than 10 days. Some people are already cursing us, saying that they have never seen us treat guests like this. Some people even said that if you don't show up they will go back." Humph. When Lanfeng stopped, turned around and said indifferently, "Go tell them that although my place is not as good as the demon domain's obedient island, it is not a place where anyone can come and go as they please. If they have the guts they can try. When the time comes I will personally visit them." The majesty of the world's second expert was revealed in an instant. Then he snorted as he walked, "Looks like I have to learn from Bai Changchun. Sometimes being too polite to others is not necessarily a good thing. Obedient Island is still peaceful and free. Who would dare to disturb it?" When Rui's expression twitched. Although it was a good thing that the old ancestor's fighting spirit had reappeared, he would offend many people if he told them the exact words. After all, Baiwan Nation was not as aloof as the demon domain. Everyone had frequent dealings with each other. "Is there any news from the Misty Forest?" When Lanfeng asked again. When Rui quickly caught up and replied, "Everyone's attention is now on the Ghost Manor. Over at the Misty Forest, Yu Qianqiu appeared a few times, but seeing that no one was paying attention to him, he hid in the Misty Forest and didn't appear again." What is this guy trying to do? When Lanfeng shook his head and smiled. When the news that there was a treasure left by the demon monarch of 10,000 swords in the Misty Forest, he was also tempted. Baiwan Nation was also gathering people to prepare for the treasure. But when he heard the news that it was Yu Qianqiu who leaked it, he immediately stopped the operation. Combined with Nongzhu's evaluation of Yu Qianqiu, he instinctively felt that there was something fishy about it. So he got in touch with Nongzhu on Obedient Island. When Nongzhu heard about it, she said suspiciously, "Based on that kid's character, even a piece of trash is divided into several storage bags. How could he easily tell others about such a precious treasure?" When Lanfeng, "Are you sure about this news?" "Wait, even if it's true, don't make a fuss. Maybe it's that kid's up to something again. By the way, don't worry about him for now. Let's keep in touch and see what he's up to." Was there such a thing? When Lanfeng was speechless. In the following days he jumped out of the scene and observed the changes from the perspective of an outsider. Sure enough, he found that none of the forces involved in this matter got any benefits. It seemed that they all suffered some losses. He kind of believed that it was Yu Qianqiu who was playing tricks on them. There are no soul formation experts in the Mist Forest who are involved, right? This was what Wen Lanfeng was worried about. He was worried that Yu Qianqiu would suffer losses and it would be hard to explain to that person on Obedient Island. When Rui knew that the ancestor had been watching Yu Qianqiu silently, even though he didn't hear it clearly from the ancestor during this period of time, he was quite protective of Yu Qianqiu. He smiled and said, "There were soul formation experts who rushed to the Mist Forest before, but they were startled by that hero. They were afraid of following in the footsteps of Hua Zhongming and Pu Taidong, so they rushed back to make arrangements. Even if they want to take action, I'm afraid they have to wait until they see you." The two had already walked out of the holy hall and were bathed in the sunshine outside. When Lanfeng stopped quietly and said slowly, "Go to the heart-cleansing lake, and tell them that I'll see them tomorrow. Obedient Island in the demon domain on the edge of the 1,000-mile lake." Nongzhu was holding a long and slender golden sword. She flicked it with her fingers and sighed constantly. After a long time he turned around and pointed at the ancestor of Nanming helplessly and said, You're also known as the #1 blacksmith in the cultivation world. The materials that Old Bai collected with great difficulty to refine a upper-grade spiritual treasure were actually refined into a middle-grade spiritual treasure by you. I don't even know what to say about you. The Nanming old ancestor, who had a strong body and a tall physique, hung his head and said somewhat innocently, I was very confident this time and was about to succeed. At the crucial moment, who knew that Qinghuo would play tricks on us? The intensity of the fire fluctuated. It's like seeing a ghost. He said to Bai Chongqun, who was standing quietly by the lake with great shame, Bai Chongqun, I'm really sorry. I didn't want this to happen. He didn't know how many times he had said this apology. Nongzhu rolled his eyes and knocked on his shoulder with his sword. He said with a hey, Old Bai is going to the East Holy Land. Don't you know what a good sword means to him? What's the use of just apologizing? I say, don't hide the treasures of your Xianxia Island anymore. Spill them all out and see if you can refine another one. The ancestor of Nanming's face twitched painfully. He pushed away the sword that Nongzhu put on his neck and gritted his teeth and said, All right, I'll go back and take a look. I'll try to refine one before you go to the East Holy Land. I hope it can help you. That's right. Nongzhu smiled wickedly. Shamelessly, she wrapped her arms around Nanming ancestor's neck and asked, Do you want me to go with you? The ancestor of Nanming pushed him away in disgust. Just as he was about to scold him, he heard Bai Chongqun say indifferently, Nanming, I appreciate your kindness. There's no need to trouble yourself. You don't have to feel guilty. I've seen the process of refining. It's not your fault. It's that Qinghuo that suddenly had a problem. I lost my life. This is heaven's will. Nongzhu, who was making faces, and the disgusted ancestor of Nanming were stunned at the same time. Nongzhu said in shock, Old Bai, what do you mean? Don't worry. It's okay. Nanming was willing to do it. No one forced him. Nanming, tell me, did you do it willingly? As he spoke, he kicked the ancestor of Nanming's butt and let him speak for himself. Chapter 545. Ancestor Nanming glared at him with extreme disgust. This guy's habit of getting physical was really annoying. Unfortunately, he had made a mistake, so he didn't want to argue with him. He turned around and said, Bai Chongqun, try again. Bai Chongqun turned around and said indifferently, Thank you for your kindness, but there's really no need. I can't break your rules. Otherwise, when I go to the East Holy Land, you'll be in endless trouble. Of course not. Nongzhu jumped between the two and patted her chest. If we don't say it, who will know that Nanming broke the rules? Nongzhu, don't say any more. Rules are rules. If I break them once, there will be a second time. The rules of Xianxia Island can't be broken on my head. I can't afford to owe you this favor, Bai Chongqun said. What kind of stupid rules are those? Nongzhu shouted at ancestor Nanming unreasonably. Nanming was speechless. He understood that Nongzhu was anxious about Bai Chongqun's matter, so she spoke without thinking. Nongzhu, don't make things difficult for him, Bai Chongqun frowned. Nongzhu stared at ancestor Nanming angrily. The latter smiled helplessly and cupped his hands at Bai Chongqun. Bai Chongqun, I'm really sorry. I'll take my leave first. He felt ashamed to stay any longer. Bai Chongqun smiled faintly. He knew that ancestor Nanming would feel uncomfortable if he stayed. He raised his hand and thanked, Sorry for the trouble, I won't see you out. I wouldn't dare. Nanming shook his head in shame. Then he let out a clear whistle. After a while, his red dragon flapped its wings and flew over from afar. An illusory figure landed on the wyvern's back. Nanming, who was riding on the wyvern, was about to leave. Suddenly, he raised his hand and slapped his forehead as if he had thought of something. Bai Chongqun, the cornucopia is about to be held. Maybe you can buy the materials you need. If you have all the materials, tell Nongzhu to bring this to me. I'll come immediately. Nanming threw out a dark shadow. Nongzhu caught it and took a look. It turned out to be the black tusk that was taken from the gate of the underworld to invite him. Bai Chongqun was startled. How can I do that? I have another item here. I can't break your rules. Nanming waved his hand and smiled. My rules didn't say that I can't return someone's things. Bai Chongqun, don't make me leave Obedient Island with guilt again. She still owed him a favor. Bai Chongqun wasn't a long-winded person. He raised his hand to thank her for the second time and said, I won't be sending you off. Farewell, Senior Nan Ming. On the other side, Zi and Hibiscus bowed together, while Miss Mu followed a few steps behind. Farewell. Nan Ming returned the greeting and waved at the three women. The wyvern under his feet let out a dragon roar, then flapped its wings and quickly flew away, turning into a black dot and disappearing. Nongzhu weighed the thing in his hand and said with satisfaction, This old man knows his place. He tossed it into his storage pouch and shook the golden sword in his hand. Since you have no use for this, why don't you leave it with me for now? I'll keep it safe for you. As soon as he finished speaking, a strong force pulled the sword away from his hand. The sword was floating in front of Bai Chongqun, and Bai Chongqun was using 2 fingers to draw something on the sword. Nongzhu saw the word, hibiscus, engraved on the sword. Bai Chongqun waved his sleeve and the golden sword flew out with a whoosh. It floated straight in front of Hibiscus, who was about to turn around, emitting a faint golden light. The 3 women looked at each other, then at the 2 seniors by the lake, not knowing what they meant. Zi suddenly exclaimed, There are words on it. Hibiscus, Hibiscus, your name is written on it. Zi immediately realized that it was a spiritual treasure given to Hibiscus by Senior Bai. She licked her lips with her bright red tongue and pushed Hibiscus with a face full of envy. Hurry up and thank Senior Bai. There are words personally engraved by Senior Bai on it. It's a gift for you. Miss Mu was also full of envy. A spiritual treasure with words personally engraved by Lord Torture Envoy. Is it a gift for me? Hibiscus was at a loss of what to do. She looked at Bai Chongqun weakly, only to see Bai Chongqun slightly nodding at her. Thank you, master. Hibiscus hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed. After staying here for a while, she had already followed Yu Qianchou and called Bai Chongqun master, under Nongzhu's instruction and Bai Chongqun's tacit consent. Hibiscus was a little confused and didn't know what it meant. She just thought that she should call Bai Chongqun master, after following Yu Qianchou. Nongzhu secretly sighed that this girl had a good life and followed a good man. Although that guy was not a good person, he really treated her well. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent her to Shuntian Island. In the end, she didn't know what kind of virtue this girl had accumulated in her previous life, but she actually fell for Bai Chongqun. Bai Chongqun, who had always been cold, suddenly asked Nongzhu one day, Yu Qianchou is my disciple and Hibiscus is my disciple's wife. Shouldn't this girl also call me master like Yu Qianchou? Isn't it a little inappropriate to call me senior? At that time, Nongzhu was completely dumbfounded as if she was struck by lightning. When she came to her senses, she kept digging her ears with her fingers, thinking that she had heard wrongly. She hurriedly asked, Old Bai, what did you say? Say it again, I didn't hear it clearly. Bai Chongqun swung his hand and left with a bad look on his face. Ancestor Nan Ming, who was still present at that time, shook his head and said, That girl Hibiscus is so lucky. Nan Ming, what did old Bai say just now? Nongzhu still couldn't believe it and pulled Ancestor Nan Ming to ask again. After Ancestor Nan Ming repeated Bai Chongqun's words, Nongzhu was dumbfounded again. She had known Bai Chongqun for so many years. This old guy was unyielding and would never give in to anyone or anything. Only others begged him and he had never begged anyone or anything. When did she hear him say such words? Although it was a casual sentence, the meaning behind it was obvious. He wanted Hibiscus to call him master like Yu Qianchou. However, with his proud and aloof character, it was impossible for him to take the initiative to ask Hibiscus to call him master. If Nongzhu wasn't stupid, she would know what to do. However, Nongzhu just wanted him to say it again. How could Bai Chongqun say it again? Naturally, he swung his sleeves and left with a bad look. Pa. Nongzhu, who came to her senses, slapped herself hard on the face. Ancestor Nanming chuckled and said, Slap, slap hard. Slap another one. It was originally a teasing remark, but who knew that Nongzhu would slap another one hard, which made Ancestor Nanming dumbfounded. When did this guy become so obedient? Ancestor Nanming curiously stretched his head over and said suspiciously, Slap another one for me to see. *CK. Nongzhu kicked him to the ground, turned around and left. This made Ancestor Nanming inexplicably jump up and curse. Crazy. After a while, Nongzhu dragged the frightened Hibiscus back. After finding Bai Chongchun, she pointed to the ground and said to Hibiscus, "Kneel down. From today on you will follow Yu Qianqiu and call him master." Bai Chongchun suppressed his anger and wanted to explode at Nongzhu. With his status in the cultivation world, did he need to force anyone to call him master? As long as he opened his mouth, there would be a long line of people begging him. He thought it was something important. So was this. Hibiscus was stunned. She thought it was right to follow Yu Qianqiu and call him master. It was what she should do. She immediately knelt down and weakly called, "Master." Bai Chongchun, who was filled with rage, was called master. Whether it was anger, it all disappeared without a trace. After being stunned for a while, he raised his hand and said, "Get up." From then on, Hibiscus called Bai Chongchun master. Nongzhu still could not understand why this girl looked like an idiot and timid. How was she better than her daughter? She was not as pretty as her daughter. She had recommended her daughter Zi to old man Bai to be his disciple several times, but the old man just did not like her. She was so angry. When she asked about Hibiscus's background, she explained it clearly. She was originally the illegitimate daughter of an elder of Fuxian Island and was an ugly girl who was bullied. Later, Yu Qianqiu used the Rui pill to help her restore her appearance. Speaking of the Rui pill, Nongzhu was so angry at Yu Qianqiu. Last time in Daong City, this guy said he only had one and Zi snatched it. She insisted that he pay for it. After asking Zi, she found out that this guy actually gave it to her. He did not snatch it at all. He was lying to her and there was more than one pill. Good boy, wait and see. Hand it over obediently and we'll talk later. Putting this matter aside, even if Hibiscus was from Fuxian Island, the #1 sect in China's cultivation world, she was not as good as the daughter of the island master of Purple Bamboo Forest in the South Sea, the famous soul formation expert Nongzhu. After thinking about it, she could only think that Hibiscus was lucky. Perhaps old man Bai was doing this out of respect for his precious disciple. No matter what, this master was very, very precious. In the cultivation world, it was comparable to any powerful magic treasure. As long as Hibiscus said that her master was Bai Chongchun, she could do whatever she wanted in the cultivation world. As long as Bai Chongchun was alive, no one would dare to touch her. This girl's value doubled in the blink of an eye after she called him master. At this moment, Hibiscus stood up and reached out her hands to grab the sword with sincerity and excitement. No matter how immature she was, she knew that this sword was a spiritual treasure. She had only heard of it in legends. She did not expect to get one today. Moreover, it was originally the sword of the world's #1 expert, but now it was given to her. Before she could grab it, the sword lost its strength and gently fell into her hands. Hibiscus held it and bowed to Bai Chongchun sincerely. Suddenly, her hands became light. Zi, who was at the side, shouted loudly as she snatched the treasured sword into her hands. She caressed it lovingly. Then she hugged Hibiscus and said, "Hibiscus, I'm so jealous of you." On the other side, when Nongzhu saw her daughter's pitiful look, she felt a surge of jealousy in her heart. With a livid face, she turned to look at Bai Chongchun and said, "Old Bai, what do you mean? With our relationship, you can't favor one and discriminate against the other. Do you have any more treasures on Xianxia Island? Find one, write something on it and give it to Zi." Chapter 546. He made it sound easy, but he made it sound like treasures were like weeds that could be plucked from the roots on Xianxia Island. Bai Chongchun glanced at him coldly. This guy would go crazy from time to time. Bai Chongchun ignored him and turned to walk to the center of the island. Nongzhu blocked in front of him and said in a deep voice, "Zi is your junior after all. It's not too much to ask you to give her a treasure as a gift." Bai Chongchun stared at him, feeling angry and funny at the same time. Even if he wanted to give her a gift, he had never seen someone so thick-skinned as to ask for a gift. He said slowly, "I don't have any treasure here." Nongzhu was stunned. He believed what Bai Chongchun said. He dared to say anything, but he would never lie. So he said gloomily, "How about I find a treasure and you write something in front of Zi and then give it to her? I'm not as bored as you." Bai Chongchun shouted in a low voice, "Get out of my way or don't blame me for being rude. I won't let you go even if you beat me to death." Wait, I seem to have a sword at the level of spiritual treasure. Nongzhu checked his storage bag. He was fearless because he knew that Bai Tongchun would not go too far even if he wanted to teach him a lesson. Bai Tongchun's face instantly turned cold. He hated it when someone took advantage of his weakness. He made a grabbing gesture with his right palm, and there was a faint chi of qi surrounding it. Obviously he wanted to teach Nongzhu a lesson. At this moment Ziyi, who was hugging Furong, suddenly said with a stern expression, "Furong, how about I become Yu Qianchou's woman like you? In that case I can also call Senior Bai master. Perhaps Senior Bai will also give me something." Lady Mu was stunned and so was Furong. The two girls looked at her serious face and did not know if she was joking or serious. Ziyi hugged Furong's arm and shook it. "What's wrong? Furong, are you not willing?" Furong was stunned and shook her head. She replied with difficulty, "No, as long as Yu Qianchou is willing, I will listen to him." Her words were so powerful that Bai Chongchun's anger disappeared completely. His expression was indescribable. He did not look at the girls but stared at Nongzhu. Time flew by in the blink of an eye, but none of them knew how precious it was. Nongzhu, who was engrossed in checking the storage bag, was stunned. In an instant she froze there motionlessly. After a long time, it was as if he had woken up from a deep slumber for millions of years. He slowly raised his head and met Bai Chongchun's gaze. His eyes were a little unfocused, as if he had been badly frightened. Then he slowly turned his head to look at the girls. A mocking expression slowly appeared on Bai Chongchun's face. This expression had not appeared on his face for more than 2,000 years. He raised his finger and said, "Nongzhu, did you hear that? If you want me to give you a treasure with inscriptions, it's very simple. Purple dress, just do as you say." With their cultivation, it would be easy for them to not let the women hear their conversation. The three women looked at each other, each with their own thoughts, and did not pay attention to the movements of the two senior experts. After Ziyi heard Furong's reply, her face suddenly flushed red. She was stunned for a while before she suddenly smiled and said, "I was just joking with you. I won't be that swindler's woman. Furong, did I scare you?" As she said this, she stuffed the sword back into Furong's hand. Even though she said this, the guilty conscience in her eyes was noticed even by Furong, let alone the others. Furong opened her mouth but did not know what to say. Suddenly an angry roar resounded, "You didn't scare the others, but you scared me." Nongzhu teleported over and stared at Ziyi with bright eyes. She said, "Ziyi, tell me, were the words you said just now the truth?" Ziyi's eyes darted around, not daring to meet her master's eyes. She pouted and said, "I was just joking." She replied casually, but in her heart Nongzhu said, "It's over, it's over." He was a veteran in love affairs and had dealt with countless women. What kind of women had he not seen? His daughter's words and actions had completely betrayed her inner thoughts. Nongzhu felt a little dizzy. Of all people, why did it have to be that guy with an extremely bad character, who made her gnash her teeth the most? Heavens! Is this your retribution for me in this life? For the sake of my daughter, I have already cultivated myself. Why did you? Nongzhu silently raised her head and asked the heavens speechlessly, but the heavens were also speechless. "Nongzhu, what kind of treasure do you want me to inscribe on? If worst comes to worst, I will go all out and personally go to Xianxia Island to look for Nanming." Bai Chongchun said with a serious face, adding insult to injury. Ziyi's pretty face turned even redder. She understood the unspoken meaning in Elder Bai's words. After looking at her daughter's face, Nongzhu really felt dizzy, so dizzy that the world was spinning. He held his forehead with one hand and shouted angrily, "Bai Chongchun, shut up." Haha. For the first time in Obedient Island, the cruelest torture envoy in the history of the demon domain laughed heartily. With a flash, he disappeared into the door of the big house at the center of the island. "Master, what's wrong?" Ziyi asked guiltily, worried that her master was angered by her. "Nothing." Nongzhu waved her hand and said nothing more. He knew that it was useless to forcefully stop this kind of thing. It probably had no effect on that brat at all, and it would hurt his daughter's heart instead. He had hurt too many women's hearts in his life, but he didn't want to hurt his daughter. Retribution. I lost so miserably. Nongzhu murmured to herself with a pale face. She walked towards the big house in a daze, her back hunched and her steps staggered. Mr. Nongzhu, the famous free cultivator who was known as the most handsome man in the cultivation world, seemed to have aged 1,000 years in an instant. He had long noticed that his daughter had an unusual feeling for Yu Qianchou, But his daughter had always been his darling, so how could he let that bastard take her away so easily? Therefore Nongzhu had been holding back his anger, and from time to time he wanted to beat up Yu Qianqiu to vent his anger. He remembered that when Yu Qianqiu first came to the purple bamboo forest in the South Sea, he had warned Yu Qianqiu not to have any improper thoughts about his daughter. It seemed that that brat really did that, and he could see that Yu Qianqiu did not have any ideas about his daughter. However, the god of fate favored that brat very much, and helped that brat to put the shackles of fate on his daughter that she could not break free from. Yu Qianqiu, who was thousands of miles away, did not do anything to him but hit his soft spot. Nongzhu, who had been secretly holding back his anger, was completely defeated. That was why he said, "I lost so miserably." The feeling of losing the most precious thing made him feel lost. Ziyi looked at her master's back blankly, wondering if she had done something wrong. Nongzhu staggered into the big house and collapsed on the ground. She seemed to have no strength left in her body, and lay there with her limbs open. Bai Changchun, who was sitting cross-legged, stared at her and frowned. He knew that Nongzhu loved Ziyi and he could understand her feelings, but he did not say anything. There was silence between them. After a long time Nongzhu sighed, "Old Bai, you saw it?" "What?" "Ziyi and Yu Qianqiu." "I never worry about that thing because it is useless to worry about it. The more I worry about it, the worse it will be." Bai Changchun shook his head slightly and then sighed, "Nongzhu, let go. Zi is not a child. You keep her by your side, which is not love. She needs her own life, good or bad, bitter or spicy. It is something she must experience in her life and she needs to taste it by herself. You filter all the taste and only give her sweet food. You should know that if she eats too much sweet food she will get tired of it and it will also become bitter." Nongzhu stared at the beam of the house and murmured, "I don't want to restrict her, I just want her to have a good ending. The world is big and everything is reproduced, but they all end up in the same place. Only an eternity without eternity can be eternal, so what kind of ending is a good ending?" Bai Changchun asked, "Do you think that Yu Qianqiu's ending is not good for Ziyi?" "Of course you think so. Yu Qianqiu is your disciple. Of course you think he is good." Nongzhu rolled his eyes, lying there. With a few words of consolation he felt a little better. He regained some of his vitality, unlike before when he was like a piece of rotten wood. "Let's not talk about this, you won't listen to me. Help me do something," Bai Changchun said. Nongzhu, lying on the ground, tilted his head and asked, "What is it?" "Find Yu Qianqiu and ask him what happened in the mist forest." Bai Changchun thought for a while and then said, "Ask him why he can go in and out of the mist forest at will." Nongzhu's eyes brightened and he quickly climbed up, patted his forehead and said, "Why didn't I think of this? If the treasure of the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch is really in the mist forest, it doesn't matter if the refining failed. With the convenience of Yu Qianqiu entering and exiting the mist forest at will, he should be able to get the sword of the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch. Maybe he has already succeeded." "Did you think of this a long time ago? No wonder you didn't have any reaction when the refining failed." "Nonsense." Bai Changchun snorted. "The mist forest is related to the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch, but it can't have the treasure of the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch. Don't let your imagination run wild." Nongzhu raised his hand to pinch his chin and looked at Bai Changchun suspiciously. "How do you know the mist forest is related to the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch? How do you know that the treasure of the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch can't be in the mist forest? Did the former torturer tell you something? Don't be too curious. Some things have nothing to do with you and I won't tell you, so don't ask." Bai Changchun refused directly. Nongzhu was so curious that she scratched her head and ears, and the unhappiness just now had long disappeared. She tentatively asked, "Is there a big secret in this? A big secret involving the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch? Tell me a little." Chapter 547. Bai Changchun glanced at him indifferently and said, "The Demon King of Swords created the Demon King of Demons. Some things about him have been passed down from generation to generation by the torture envoys and will not be disclosed to outsiders. You had the chance to know but you gave it up. Even so, I can give you another chance. If you swear to take over as the next torturer, I'll tell you without you even asking. Do you really want to know?" Nongzhu, who was dawdling and acting shamelessly, was stunned. His face twitched for a while before he shrank back and said embarrassedly, "I just asked casually. It's fine if you don't want to tell me, but you don't have to be so serious. Don't you want to know? Bai Chongchun snorted and said, I trust the judgment of the former torture envoy. Nongzhu waved his hand and said, forget it. That old thing makes me nervous. You'd better tell your precious disciple. It was not worth it for him to put on the shackles of the demon king of demons for a secret that had nothing to do with him. He lived a carefree life now. He could eat, sleep, leave and stay as he pleased. The world was big and he could do whatever he wanted. Go early and come back early, Bai Chongchun said coldly. He was urging him to hurry up and stop dawdling. Humph. Nongzhu got up unhappily and said while pulling his clothes, it's my bad luck to meet you. You always order me around. I just want to ask you a question. You can go by yourself. Why do you always ask me to pass the message? Although he said so, he also knew that if Bai Chongchun showed up in all the countries to look for someone, it would be a little too noisy. This guy didn't show up easily. Once he did, he would shock the world and make all the practitioners panic. Those who didn't know would think that something big was going to happen again. There was no other way. He was so famous. Walking to the door, Nongzhu suddenly turned around and asked, according to the news from Wenlanfeng recently, Yu Qianchou is making more and more trouble. Aren't you afraid that he won't be able to clean up the mess? There's nothing bad about it. The bigger the trouble, the better. If it was too quiet, it would create trouble for him. Let him get used to it, then I can leave in peace, Bai Chongchun said calmly. Nongzhu was dumbfounded. She really wanted to call him a lunatic. It turned out that this old thing really let his apprentice do whatever she wanted. For the growth of his apprentice, he used the whole cultivation world as a whetstone. His mood had fluctuated too much today and he didn't want to be agitated anymore. Nongzhu flashed outside and went to the sound transmission formation left by ancestor Nan Ming. After sending a message to Wenlanfeng, she quickly flew away. In the sacred land of Baiwan Nation, ancient trees covered the sky densely. In the depths of the jungle, the surface of the heart-cleansing lake was as calm as a mirror, reflecting the blue sky and white clouds. From time to time, various kinds of birds would fly past. There were many pavilions and buildings by the lake, and the morning mist curled up like smoke. It was like a fairyland on earth. This was the place where the literati of Baiwan Kingdom used to entertain their guests. Occasionally, there would be people walking back and forth between the pavilions. There were also cultivators in groups of 3 to 5 who were chatting together. From time to time, people would descend from the sky. Most of them rejected the disciples sent by the Wen family to attract the guests and joined the crowd of cultivators to chat. At this moment, the sound of someone flying through the air could be heard. From the sound, it didn't sound like an ordinary expert. Everyone looked up. As soon as they looked up, they saw an old man in a black robe stopping in midair. He laughed and said, Brother Changsho, I didn't expect you to be one step ahead of me. The person was Yin Baikong. Many people greeted him, but many turned their heads away in disgust. Below, there were 4 people standing on a stand that extended to the lake. Compared to other places, this stand was bigger, but there were fewer people. There was no other reason than that the 4 people below were the top 10 experts in the cultivation world. They were all experts in the late soul formation stage. Cultivators had their own circles, and it was difficult for those who were not of a high enough level to gather together. Just like in the secular world, the top figures' levels were too high, and they didn't have a common language with those of a lower level. Small figures couldn't afford to play with them. Yin Baikong, you're late. The gray-robed old man leaning against the railing glanced at him. This person was the lord of the Eastern Nation, the palace master of the heavenly peak cloud palace, Hu Chongshou. Yin Baikong landed beside him with a string of shadows. Just as he was about to speak, someone laughed and said, Yin Baikong, you look good. Yin Baikong turned around and glanced at the 3 people standing a few meters away. He cupped his fists indifferently and said, Pei Fong Ouyangda Chijujuan, long time no see. The 3 of them looked at each other and smiled. It was a smile that harbored evil intentions. A fat man in blue slowly moved towards Yin Baikong. He was plump and round and his face was covered in grease. He looked like a rich landlord. This person was the lord of the Thousand Joy Nation, a late soul formation stage expert, Pei Fong. He nodded solemnly and said, It has been a long time. I heard that your grandson was kidnapped, so I wanted to meet you and tell you to restrain your grief. Who knew that you were really willing to take out 300 million high-grade spirit stones to ransom him? This Pei is very surprised. As expected of the boss behind the World Chamber of Commerce, you're very rich. The two of them stood together. They were about the same height, but one was fat and the other was thin. The difference in size was too great. Yin Baikong narrowed his eyes and sneered, "Fatty Pei, you were lucky to escape last time. Do you want to fight again today?" "What do you mean by lucky to escape? Last time it was your fatty grandpa who had an urgent matter and left first. What? You want to fight again here?" Pei Fong looked around and the fat on his face shook. He clicked his tongue and said, "I don't mind, I can accompany you anytime. But this place is beautiful and it's Wen Lanfeng's territory. I'm afraid you don't have the guts." "Fatty Pei, you're not afraid, do you think I am? If you dare come, I'll accept," Yin Baikong retorted. At this time the lords of the surrounding countries were watching. Even if they were afraid of Wen Lanfeng, they couldn't lose in a verbal argument in public. Otherwise they would lose face. Ouyangda and Qi Jujuan looked at each other and slowly walked to the left and right of Pei Fong. The former said indifferently, "It's better to have fun together than to have fun alone. If you two don't mind, let us join in." "That's right." Qi Jujuan, who was wearing a golden robe, agreed. He was the Lord of Nine Tuis and the former was the Lord of Great Liao. Both of them were late soul formation experts and they were in the same group as Pei Fong. Their words were pleasant to the ear and they seemed to be joining in the fun. But the surrounding people could see that their intention was obvious. They wanted to beat Yin Baikong up with 3 people. Yin Baikong laughed and turned around. "Brother Changsho, it's rare to have a fun time." His tone was meaningful. Hu Changsho, who was facing the heart-cleansing lake with his hands behind his back, said without turning his head, "Since it's a fun time, the more the merrier. Count me in." Chapter 548. Needless to say, Hu Changsho was definitely on Yin Baikong's side. Hee. Interesting. Many lords from various countries smiled lasciviously, rubbing their hands in anticipation. 5 late-stage spirit-severing experts actually wanted to fight 3 against 2 in Wen Lanfeng's territory. It was definitely exciting and not to be missed. This trip was definitely worth it. Of the top 10 experts in the cultivation world, Bai Chongqun and Wen Lanfeng, ranked first and second, had always relied on their profound cultivation to act independently and never did things like forming a gang. The remaining 8 people were not so confident. Perhaps it was because they felt insecure, perhaps it was for common interests, or perhaps it was to resist other powerful forces. They gathered in groups of 2s and 3s. Bing Qingzi, Yin Baikong, and Hu Changsho were jackals of the same tribe. Ouyangda, Qi Jujuan, and Pei Fong were entangled together. There were also 2 others who thought their cultivation was higher than these 6. The 2 felt that they were evenly matched, so they reluctantly grouped together. These 2 might have been overconfident, thinking that no one in the world could beat them together. Back in the East Sea, they were not convinced by Chongqun. At the same time, they seemed to have taken some wrong medicine and joined forces with great confidence to challenge the world's #1 expert. In the end, Bai Chongqun gave the 2 of them a quick death. They no longer had the chance to be alive and kicking. They were dead. From then on, 2 of the top 10 experts were gone. Therefore, a large group of mid-stage spirit-severing experts became the candidates for the 2 vacant spots. No one was convinced by each other and felt that they had the ability to be ranked among the top 10 experts. Sometimes this kind of false reputation could also drive people crazy. For this false reputation there would be endless friction. Once these 5 people started fighting, 1 or 2 of the top 10 experts would die. Wouldn't that mean that there would be 1 or 2 vacancies? It would be best if they could infuriate Wen Lanfeng and kill 1 or 2 of them. That would be even better. Everyone looked at the 5 of them expectantly. Hu Changsho silently stood beside Yin Baikong. The 2 stood calmly and a faintly discernible killing intent began to surge. The 3 people opposite them looked at each other and revealed a cold smile. 3 against 2, this kind of opportunity was rare. The fat on Pei Fong's face trembled as he said, "Should we wait for Bing Qingzi to come? Otherwise he will say that we are bullying with numbers." "Wait for Bing Qingzi? Aren't you afraid of biting your own tongue?" Yin Baikong sneered. "I heard that you, Fatty Pei, have escaped death more than 10 times in the hands of Bing Qingzi. Aren't you afraid that you won't have another chance to escape this time?" Hu Changsho said indifferently, "It escaped from me 5 times. Yin Baikong stared blankly for a moment before replying, "It's the same. I have 5 times with me." The two of them stared blankly for a moment before looking at Pei Fong with disdain. Whispers immediately rang out in the surroundings. Normally, it was impossible for them to fight against soul formation final stage experts. Who would have thought that there would be such a powerful person among them? Pei Fong glanced around proudly. He did not feel embarrassed at all. Instead, he had an expression that said, "What do you guys know? Don't talk nonsense. If you have the ability, don't say it." Qi Jujuan snorted coldly and shot into the air. Pei Fong held his belly and laughed. Then he and Ouyangda flashed into the air at the same time. The three of them looked down. A thick and forceful aura filled the air. Yin Baikong squinted his eyes and stared at the sky. He smiled evilly and said, "Brother Changsho, I'll leave the damn fatty to you. Don't let him escape again. I'll handle the other two." Hu Changsho replied with action. He teleported into the air and stood opposite Pei Fong expressionlessly. Yin Baikong followed closely behind. The 5 of them were filled with killing intent. The intense killing intent frightened the birds and beasts in the forest and caused them to flee. The people below were also on standby. This battle could be considered as the pinnacle battle of the cultivation world. A battle between soul formation final stage experts was not child's play. Even the slightest ripple could cause a lot of trouble. The spectators had to be prepared to dodge at any time. Bing Qingzi, who was supposed to be part of the battle, was currently in a desolate mountain not far from Baiwan Nation's sacred land. The small hillside was overgrown with weeds. On a protruding blue stone, Bing Qingzi, whose hair and beard were all white, stood quietly. A light breeze blew against his thin white robe. Apart from his face, his entire body seemed to be completely white. Man Hu and his brothers were obediently standing at the side. Yan Zhuixing quickly sized up the old man in front of him. This was the first time he had seen a legendary soul formation stage expert. Furthermore, it was an expert at the late-stage soul formation stage. Even if he had a heart of stone, he could not help but feel slightly nervous. Bing Qingzi, who was looking down from above, was also sizing up this genius who cultivated the demonic book. Although he looked calm on the surface, he was sighing in his heart. Countless people had died. Finally, there was hope to break a curse that had bound many people for generations. His cultivation was not low among the top 10 experts. However, he had wasted too much energy in order to find someone who could form a demonic body and cultivate the demonic book. As a result, Yin Baikong, whose cultivation was slightly lower than his, had taught 2 soul formation stage disciples. However, he did not have a single disciple under his name. His cultivation was not low, but he was the weakest among the top 10 experts. Even many soul formation middle stage experts were stronger than him. It was not easy for him to find the time to teach 7 disciples who were at the tribulation final stage. He treated each of them as if they were his own children. However, one of them died because of the demonic book's inheritor. It really made his heart ache. Activating the demonic art, he calmed down his slightly nervous state of mind. Yan Zhuixing bowed and said, "Junior Yan Zhuixing greets Senior Bing. I have always been indebted to Senior's kindness, but I did not have the chance to meet you. It is my great fortune to be able to meet Senior today." "No need to be so courteous." Bing Qingzi raised his hand and sighed, "I don't deserve it." Why did it sound like he was mocking someone? Yan Zhuixing was slightly startled and said, "Senior, do you have any opinions about me? If you do, you can say it directly. I will definitely follow your instructions and will not have any opinions." Bing Qingzi glanced at Man Hu. Obviously, his disciple did not tell the truth to Yan Zhuixing. He paused for a while and said, "This is for later. I will find an opportunity to tell you the truth. Man Hu has already told me your purpose of coming." Before he finished his words, he suddenly raised his head and looked in the direction of the Wen family's sacred ground. Seeing his solemn expression, the others did not know what had happened and followed his gaze. Looking left and right, they did not find anything. After a while, they felt that there was a slight abnormal fluctuation in the air, and then they saw flocks of birds flying over from afar. "Master, is there something wrong?" Man Hu asked. "It's the breath of those old guys. What the hell are they doing? Are they going to fight in the Wen family's sacred ground?" Bing Qingzi frowned and quickly flew away without saying anything to them. For him, this distance was just a few blinks of an eye. In the sky above the heart-cleansing lake, When the situation was on the verge of breaking out, a flying sound was approaching rapidly. The spectators secretly clicked their tongues. Needless to say, the last person of the two groups of rivals had also arrived. Among the remaining 8 top experts in the cultivation world, only Bai Chongqun and Wen Lanfeng were left. The rest were all here. Pei Fong and the other 2 people's faces changed slightly. They all understood that if it was really 3 against 3, they might still be a little weaker. Yin Baikong and Hu Changsho looked at each other. The former turned back and sneered, "Fatty Hu, aren't you waiting for Bing Qingzi? As you wish, Bing Qingzi is here. I hope you can be tough today and don't run away with your tail between your legs. Your escaping skills are unparalleled in the world. I really can't catch up with you." Hu Changsho said indifferently, "One ran away but there are still 2 left." "Good." As he spoke, a white shadow flashed by. Bing Qingzi, who was covered in snow from head to toe, suddenly appeared in the sky. Bing Qingzi glanced at them and said in a deep voice, "What's going on?" Yin Baikong looked at Pei Fong and said with a smile, "Bing Qingzi, you came at the right time. We didn't recruit anyone but someone actually provoked us first." Fatty Pei specifically said that he was waiting for you to settle the score. "Settle the score with me?" Bing Qingzi was slightly startled and looked at Hu Changsho with an inquiring look. The latter said indifferently, "Yes, everyone below heard it." Bing Qingzi stared at Pei Fong and said in a deep voice, "Fatty Pei, you stole my spirit beast from the snowy mountain last time. It's already good enough that I didn't settle the score with you, but you actually want to settle the score with me?" Pei Fong was speechless. Although he called out Bing Qingzi's name, he didn't mean to settle the score with him. Yin Baikong and Hu Changsho were obviously playing tricks on him. However, explaining now would make him seem afraid of trouble. He immediately said with his fat face shaking, "Bing Qingzi, don't accuse me wrongly. When did I go to the snowy mountain to steal your spirit beast? You think I can't recognize you just because you're wrapped in white?" Bing Qingzi snorted coldly, "My mysterious Yin Palm doesn't feel good, does it?" Oh Yongda and Qi Jujuan turned to look at Fatty. The latter frowned and said, "You went to steal from others again?" The 2 of them had been implicated countless times because of this guy's stealing. Allying with this guy was really bad luck. The most depressing thing was that this guy liked to steal from experts, especially from the 3 of them. But then again, the more powerful an expert's item, the more valuable it was. There were only a few top experts in the cultivation world. He didn't dare to steal from those that were too powerful. "What are you talking about?" Pei Fong patted his chest and said excitedly, "Don't tell me you don't believe me but believe them. Hey. With your figure it's hard to mistake you." Yin Baikong glanced at his chubby figure and sneered, "You're a famous thief. It's not the first time you've visited my God of Wealth peak. It's a disgrace to be on the same level as you among the top 10 experts." Pei Fong had a belly full of anger when he talked about stealing from the God of Wealth peak. The last time he snuck into the God of Wealth peak, he only stole a tightly sealed broken box and was discovered by Yin Baikong. He didn't know what kind of valuable treasure was hidden inside, but it provoked Yin Baikong to chase after him for a few days and nights, causing him to be covered in injuries and almost lose his life. In the end, he had no choice but to throw away the broken chest and escape. It was because of this that he took the initiative to provoke Yin Baikong. Thinking of the injuries that took a long time to heal, Pei Fong was enraged and shouted, "Yin Baikong, don't confuse right and wrong here. If you want to fight, then bring it on. Hehe. Don't think of leaving here alive today." Yin Baikong sneered. He was eager to use this opportunity to get rid of 1 or 2 troublesome fellows. "Yin Baikong, I haven't seen you for many years. You're getting more and more arrogant. Do you think this is your world commerce? Do you think you can call the shots here?" A faint voice reverberated in the surroundings. Then the voice became louder and louder. Although it was soft, it became somewhat deafening in the end. The calm surface of the heart-cleansing lake was shaken by the continuous sound, and it lost its calmness. The leaves of the surrounding trees were also shaking non-stop. Such a profound cultivation. Everyone was shocked. They looked around but couldn't find where the voice came from. Although they couldn't see who was speaking, they knew it was Wen Lanfeng from the voice. The expressions of the 6 late-stage soul formation cultivators changed. They weren't strangers to Wen Lanfeng. Just from this voice, they could tell that Wen Lanfeng's cultivation was far stronger than before. No wonder he dared to go to the demon domain to find Bai Chongqun. In the ghost manor, Yu Qianchou had already moved out of the small courtyard. He didn't move outside the ghost manor, but to the main courtyard of the ghost manor. Under Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing's inquiry, the group of rogue cultivators who originally occupied the main courtyard happily gave up their territory. Since Senior Niu wanted to live here, no one dared to say anything. The ghost manor was no longer the world of rogue cultivators. Cultivators from various countries had gathered here. Although there were many people, no one dared to cause trouble. After all, they had been warned by their sects before coming here. Everyone's purpose in coming here was naturally to find Niu Yid. At the arched entrance of the main courtyard, Qin Jiaxing stood there like a door god. He looked at the group of people in front of him and said indifferently, "Come one by one. Don't rush. You can only enter if you pay." A large group of late-stage tribulation passing experts stared at Qin Jiaxing, who was guarding the entrance. A mere early-stage tribulation passing expert actually dared to block their way. However, they couldn't do anything about it. Who told them to ask for help? Moreover, the people guarding the entrance were the mysterious Niu Yid's subordinates. To be honest, when Qin Jiaxing first faced so many late-stage tribulation passing experts, it would be a lie to say that he wasn't afraid. He was so scared that his legs and stomach turned to jelly. But no. A person angrily strode out. Qin Jiaxing pointed at the nose of a late-stage tribulation passing cultivator and said coldly, "It's your turn." The person stared at Qin Jiaxing and sneered, waiting to see what would happen. Gritting his teeth, he took out a storage bag and stuffed it into the person's hand. Just as he was about to rush inside, Qin Jiaxing grabbed him. "Wait!" The person shouted, "Let go." He wanted to kill Qin Jiaxing on the spot. Yes. 100,000 high-grade spirit stones. Not a bad amount. After Qin Jiaxing injected his divine sense into the bag, he let go of the person, waved his hand and said, "You can go in." "You." The person was so angry that he clenched his fists and the bones in his body made cracking sounds. Qin Jiaxing coldly snorted and said expressionlessly, "Senior Niu's time is very precious. If you don't want to go in, then please get out of the way. There are people waiting behind you. However, you should know the rules, right? The money you received is not refundable." Chapter 549. That person flicked his sleeves and entered with a muffled sound. "Young man, be more polite with your words. Don't be too ruthless and leave some leeway for us to meet in the future." The one who said this was none other than Guan Zhongkai, who had a huge battle with Yu Qianchou. He was originally in charge of the World Commerce Association's branch in Gold Casting City. After his master Sikongju arrived, he was sent over to invite Niu Yid. Because of Ghost Village's one-armed elder, it was inconvenient for a soul formation expert to personally come, so Sikongju could only let his disciple go first. What made Guan Zhongkai depressed was that many people from various countries came to invite Niu Yid, but Niu Yid refused to come out of Ghost Village. Those who wanted to see him had to line up. This ostentatious display was really not bad. The most infuriating thing was that Niu Yid actually raised the price. Those who wanted to see him had to pay a meeting fee of 100,000 high-grade spirit stones. Otherwise he wouldn't see them. This was simply looting a burning house. If it wasn't for Ghost Village's one-armed elder having enough face and Niu Yid's unfathomable cultivation, Ghost Village would definitely be trampled to the ground today. Guan Zhongkai waited for half a day and saw this gatekeeper's arrogance and rudeness. Now that it was his turn and he was so close, he couldn't help but warn him. "Leave some leeway? There's such a saying in the cultivation world?" Qin Jiaxing stood on the steps and glanced at him condescendingly. "When I was acting like a grandson in the past, I was polite to everyone, but I didn't see anyone leave me any leeway. They still didn't treat you as a human. Furthermore, I didn't go all out, I was just following Senior Niu's instructions and doing official business. Alright. Cut the crap and see if you have enough money in your pockets. If not, then move aside and don't affect others." "You." Guan Zhongkai had the urge to go berserk and hit someone. A purple-clothed person behind him pulled him back and sighed, "Brother Guan, why bother with him? He's just a petty person intoxicated by success. There's still a long way to go." This person was Yulan Du, who had been hanging out with Guan Zhongkai for a long time. When he said this, his tone was long and he even pulled Guan Zhongkai towards the one-armed elder pruning branches at the side of the wall. He seemed to be telling Guan Zhongkai to endure it for now and find a chance to deal with this dog who relied on his master's power. Threat. If I follow boss closely, I won't be afraid no matter where I go. Qin Jiaxing stood there carelessly, still looking down on everyone else. He felt great in his heart. In his entire life he had never dreamed that there would be a day where he would be able to dictate everything to a few hundred experts at the end of the Tribulation Transcendence stage. He had caused them to lose their temper and become obedient in front of him. Whether or not he would be retaliated against in the future was a matter for the future. In short, he had such a good time in his life. Even if he died, it would be worth it. When he thought of this, Qin Jiaxing straightened his back a little more. His calm gaze slowly swept across the crowd below. His bearing was steady and graceful, and he had the demeanor of a master. If a person wasn't afraid of anything and didn't care about anything, he would naturally be strong without any desires. The rogue cultivators who were huddled in the surroundings stared at Qin Jiaxing enviously. He thought to himself, this guy has finally made a name for himself. He's so bold that he dares to order a group of experts at the final stage of the crossing calamity stage. I'm so envious. Not long after, the person who went in earlier came out with an ashen face. Many people asked him what was going on, but he didn't answer and quickly flew away after he went out. The group of people looked at each other. They didn't know what Niu Yi did to the people who went in. Why did none of them have a good expression when they came out? Next. Qin Jiaxing shouted in a voice that was neither loud nor soft. Guan Zhongkai gritted his teeth as he took out a storage bag and handed it over. With the previous example, he wasn't in a hurry. He waited for the arrogant guy at the door to count the spirit stones and get his permission before he strode in. The courtyard was deep and serene. After passing through the plum trees on both sides, he saw two people standing on a platform at the entrance of the main hall. The person standing to the side was expressionless, while the person facing him was staring at him with a smile. Fo, we meet again. When Yu Qianchou saw that the person who came was actually Guan Zhongkai, he smiled even more happily. This must be Mr. Niu Yid. Guan Zhongkai didn't like this Niu Yid very much. He was the same as the guards outside and liked to look down on people. How could he greet a guest like this? However, he still forced a smile and cupped his fists at Yu Qianchou. I'm Guan Zhongkai from the World Commerce Association. I'm here to meet you. I have something to discuss with you. As he spoke, he sized up the main hall, implying that they should go in and talk. Yu Qianchou smiled and nodded. He turned around and slowly walked towards the main hall with his hands behind his back. Just as Guan Zhongkai went up the stairs, the person beside him interrupted and stopped him. The person said expressionlessly, "You've seen Senior Niu's face. Please go back. If you still want to talk to Senior Niu, please pay more. 200,000 superior grade spirit stones." Guan Zhongkai was stunned. When he reacted, his expression twitched. Are you kidding me? I paid 100,000 superior grade spirit stones. Just a meeting and that's it. That's right. Fu Chun didn't hide and explained cleanly. That 100,000 superior grade spirit stones is just the meeting fee. It doesn't include the cost of the conversation. Senior Niu's time is very precious. It's already rare that he's willing to meet you for 100,000 superior grade spirit stones. If you want to take up Senior Niu's time to chat, you naturally have to pay more. You guys must be crazy for money. 100,000 superior grade spirit stones for just one meeting? Guan Zhongkai was furious. He felt like he had been cheated. Please calm down. Fu Chun was neither arrogant nor rash. She continued politely. This rule isn't just for you. Everyone who came in before followed it. There were no exceptions. Please forgive me. Why didn't you say so earlier? You guys are cheating people on purpose. Of course not. Fu Chun said curiously, I told everyone who went out to tell the rules here to the people outside. Didn't they say anything? That can't be right. Guan Zhongkai was stunned. He finally understood now. No wonder everyone who went out had a bad expression. When he asked them what was wrong, none of them answered. It seemed like they had suffered a loss and didn't want others to take advantage of them, so they deliberately hid it. If it's inconvenient, please return. Senior Niu's time is precious and he has a bad temper. If you take too long, you might attract unnecessary trouble. Fu Chun raised her hand politely to send them off. This was a blatant threat. Guan Zhongkai's face turned green and red. But what could he do? He had to bear with it. If he came here and told his master that he spent 100,000 superior-grade spirit stones and didn't even have a single conversation with Niu Yid, he would be scolded to death by his master. What he was most afraid of was that he couldn't see through Niu Yid's cultivation. It was obviously higher than his. Even if he wanted to lose his temper, he had to consider the consequences. 200,000 high-grade spirit stones for a simple conversation, isn't it a little too expensive? Guan Zhongkai was clearly admitting defeat since he could say such words. He had no choice. Money was a small matter. He wasn't spending his own money. The key was to complete the task his master gave him. How aggrieved. No. 200,000 isn't expensive at all. Fu Chun waved her hand and said, Senior Niu said that his value is the lowest and very fair. If it was the world's #1 expert by Chongqun who wants to meet him, I'm afraid that even if you spend 100 million superior-grade spirit stones, he might not even meet you, let alone chat with him. How can this be compared? Guan Zhongkai almost choked to death. What kind of person was Bai Chongqun? He couldn't be measured with money. Moreover, he wouldn't do such a vulgar thing. As long as he asked, people would give him money. Why can't it be compared? Everyone has a value. Fu Chun counted with her fingers, wanting to reason with him. Guan Zhongkai felt his scalp go numb. He quickly raised his hand and said, All right. You don't have to say anymore. I admit defeat. 200,000, right? I'll give it to you. It took half a day to queue up. Master was still waiting in Gold Casting City. If this continued, how long would Master have to wait? Guan Zhongkai quickly rummaged through his storage bag and took out 200,000 superior-grade spirit stones. He stuffed them into Fu Chun's hands and said helplessly, Count them. Fu Chun counted expressionlessly. She had become numb from counting money. She had long lost the excitement she had in the beginning. Boss's prepared excuses were used one after another. Today she had finally seen it. In the past she would fight over a piece of superior-grade spirit stone. Now it was like child's play. This was called earning money. But then again, Boss was probably the only one who dared to play like this in the cultivation world. Please. Fu Chun kept the storage bag and respectfully led the way. This service attitude finally made Guan Zhongkai feel a little better in his heart. Yu Qianchou smiled as he sat at the coffee table in the main hall. He held a cup of tea and took a sip. His eyes were focused on the clear tea in the cup. Fu Chun led him to his side and pointed to an empty seat on the other side of the coffee table. He said to Guan Zhongkai, Please take a seat. The price to pay to speak to Mr. isn't small. Guan Zhongkai sat down and said sarcastically. Yu Qianchou smiled and didn't reply. Guan Zhongkai frowned and said, Don't tell me you want to collect money again? Please wait. Fu Chun said politely. He took out a transparent hourglass from his storage bag. It looked like it was carved from a single piece of crystal. It wasn't big and looked small. The design was not bad. Fu Chun placed the hourglass upside down on the coffee table. After the sound of flowing sand could be heard, he quietly retreated to the side. Guan Zhongkai pointed at the hourglass and said in surprise, What does this mean? Are you going to collect money by the hour? Begin. Yu Qianchou laughed and finally spoke. He placed the teacup on the table and pointed at the hourglass. You're talking about this. There are too many people looking for me. I have no choice but to do this. Otherwise they would come and talk to me for half a day. When will it end? I'm a soft-hearted person. I can't refuse to see people looking for me. So I can only set some harsh conditions. Please excuse me, ha. Chapter 550. You're soft-hearted? I think you're more like black-hearted. My grandmaster Yin Baikong is famous for doing business in the cultivation world, but he's never done it like you. Guan Zhongkai held back his words forcefully and didn't say it out loud. He pointed at the hourglass unhappily and said, Looks like I'm not wrong, you charge by the hour. Look at your words, you're exaggerating. Yu Qianchou smiled. There's nothing wrong with the hour. But you've already paid 200,000 for the conversation. I won't charge you for the rest of the time. Hearing this, Guan Zhongkai's slightly leaning body relaxed and he heaved a sigh of relief. But he was still cursing in his heart. What's the difference between paying 200,000 high-grade spirit stones in a single hour and robbery? No, it's even easier than robbery. Yu Qianchou glanced at him and saw his sullen face. He knew he was probably scolding him. This was within his expectations. If he couldn't hear it, then pretend he didn't know. What could he do? He coughed and said seriously, "That Guan? What's your name again?" Guan Zhongkai had just gathered his energy and was ready to talk about business, but his face darkened again when he heard this. He had just announced his name and the other party had forgotten about it. Clearly he didn't care about him at all. Usually he relied on his position as Yin Baikong's first disciple to be arrogant in the cultivation world. When had he ever been ignored like this? Actually, he didn't care about Nyoyid at all. Although he knew that Nyoyid might be a soul-forming master, he could tell from the way he addressed him and his actions that he didn't care about it at all. Who knew that the other party was even more blatant about his disregard? Helplessly, he held his breath and said in a low voice, "Guan Zhongkai. Guan Zhongkai, I've heard of you, I've heard of you." Yu Qianchou had a look of realization. He nodded and said, "I heard that you're in charge of Gold Casting City and brought a lot of spirit stones to place a bounty on Yu Qianchou's head. Is this true?" "I'm just following orders." Guan Zhongkai wasn't here to talk about this. He casually said, "Mister, you're also concerned about this?" "Of course I'm concerned. I heard the bounty is 100 million high-grade spirit stones." Yu Qianchou paused and explained embarrassedly, "It's not for the spirit stones, I just know Yu Qianchou. It would be strange if it wasn't for the spirit stones. If it wasn't for the spirit stones, would you be so shameless as to do this?" Guan Zhongkai casually replied with an "oh," and glanced at the slippery sand in the hourglass. He changed the topic and said, "I came to find you because I have something important to discuss with you." He changed the topic, but Yu Qianchou continued talking about himself. Guan Zhongkai's eyes lit up as he suddenly thought of something. He seemed to have received news that Nyoyid said that Exin Laosen had brought Yu Qianchou to visit him. If that was the case, then Nyoyid might really be able to contact Yu Qianchou. Guan Zhongkai gnashed his teeth as he thought of Yu Qianchou. Admitting defeat in front of everyone last time was too embarrassing. If he wasn't Master's chief disciple and Master was a person who stood above tens of thousands of people in the World Chamber of Commerce, he would have ended up in a miserable state. Even so, when he returned, Master Sikongju was so angry that he almost killed him. After a round of cursing, he was severely punished, causing him to almost be unable to lift his head in the World Chamber of Commerce. This time, Master still gave him a chance to redeem himself by performing meritorious deeds. This hatred would never end. After a moment of silence, Guan Zhongkai's eyes flickered as he said, "From Mister's tone, it seems that Mister has a way to capture Yu Qianchou?" Yu Qianchou inadvertently glanced at the hourglass that had more than half of the fine sand leaking out. He coughed and said, "Insignificant Yu Qian. Haha. Let's get back to business. Honestly, if I can capture Yu Qianchou, how much money will you give me?" "Yu Qianchou is hiding in the fog forest. You really have a way to capture him?" Guan Zhongkai asked in disbelief. Even Fu Chun, who was standing at the side, couldn't help but look at Yu Qianchou a few times. This fog forest wasn't a place that anyone could enter. However, with Boss' unfathomable abilities, it really wasn't clear. "This isn't something you should worry about." Yu Qianchou raised his teacup and took a small sip. He slowly said, "The key is whether the price can move me." Guan Zhongkai suddenly stood up and muttered, "This?" He slowly paced around the hall in deep thought. Even though world commerce was very rich and his position in world commerce wasn't low, the maximum amount of spirit stones he could use was at most 100 million. This was also the authority to use it in emergencies. Yu Qianchou wasn't in a hurry and let him think slowly. He held his teacup and occasionally looked at the hourglass. It seemed that Fu Chun's gaze was also sweeping over the hourglass. After a while, Guan Zhongkai's expression returned to normal and he sat back down in his chair. He put on the face of a merchant negotiating and asked, "How much do you want? Name a price. We can discuss it." He looked calm on the surface, but he was secretly excited. Looking at Nyoyid's appearance, he might really have a way to capture Yu Qianchou. If it was true, then this trip was worth it. He had resolved two major matters for world commerce in one go. This merit was more than enough for him to wipe away his previous shame. Most importantly, he could capture Yu Qianchou to vent his anger. This face as expected of someone from world commerce. Yu Qianchou was delighted and placed his teacup back on the table. He shook his sleeves and pushed out his palms, revealing all 10 of his fingers. 1 billion high-grade spirit stones. 1 billion? Guan Zhongkai was stunned and then sneered. Mr. Niu, you must be joking. Is that trash Yu Qianchou worth this price? It's too high, this is impossible. Your grandma is the trash, your father's net worth, F***K priceless. Yu Qianchou's expression twitched. He had just wanted to discuss the price of his capture with someone else and was secretly happy. He didn't expect to suffer a loss in the blink of an eye. Since it's impossible, then there's nothing more to say. Yu Qianchou added with some pent-up anger. Everyone knows the value of the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch's treasure. Yu Qianchou is a priceless treasure. A fixed price of 1 billion, not a single spirit stone less. If you want to take advantage, tell your world commerce to find someone who has the ability to capture Yu Qianchou. He thought to himself, you dare to call me trash in front of me? Bastard, just wait and see. One day I'll chop you into a pile of trash and feed you to the dogs. Guan Zhongkai was stunned. He didn't know why he was angry at Yu Qianchou. This person clearly had the face of doing business, but why was he so impatient when it came to discussing the price? No wonder he could only make such a shameless profit. He smiled and said, Mister, why are you in such a hurry? We can slowly discuss the price. I have to be in a hurry. I'm thinking for you. Yu Qianchou knocked on the table expressionlessly, then pointed at the hourglass. He waved at Fu Chun and said, send the guest out. You. Guan Zhongkai almost choked to death. He stared at the hourglass and stuttered for a while, not knowing what to say. He wasn't a fool. Of course, he knew what it meant when the hourglass timer ended. Fu Chun, who was at the side, was stunned when she heard the two of them talking about 1 billion high-grade spirit stones. Even though he had broadened his horizons in the past few days, he still couldn't accept such a huge number. What kind of concept was 1 billion high-grade spirit stones? After being roused by his boss's words, he took a deep breath and walked to Guan Zhongkai's side. He raised his hand towards the door and said, please. Wait. Guan Zhongkai couldn't take it anymore. How could he just leave like this? After talking for half a day, they didn't talk about anything practical and had spent 300,000 spirit stones. How was he going to explain when he returned? Even the world commerce's chief disciple's grand disciple couldn't be this wasteful, right? Did he still want to work in the future? Mr. Guan, everyone abides by the rules. You can't be the only exception, right? If this matter gets out, Senior Niu will really be embarrassed. Please go back. Fu Chun raised his hand again to send the guest off. A ghost dared to brazenly blacken others. This wasn't something a normal person would do. Guan Zhongkai really wanted to curse, but he still cupped his hands towards Fu Chun and said, little brother, please wait a moment. Allow me to say a few more words. He had to lower his head when he was under someone else's roof. Please. Fu Chun's tone became stiff. He really didn't give any face. Anyway, with his boss at the side supporting him, he wasn't afraid at all. Wasn't it just a tribulation late-stage cultivator? There were still a lot of people outside waiting to see him. Don't pull and pull. Guan Zhongkai pushed Fu Chun's hand away gloomily. He anxiously shouted at Yu Qianchou, Mr. Niu, please listen to me say a few more words. Yu Qianchou snorted and glanced at him. He picked up his tea and ignored him. Damn it. He dared to call me a bastard. Senior Niu, I really have something important to discuss with you. Guan Zhongkai finally stopped putting on airs and changed the way he addressed Mr. Niu. He had no choice but to admit defeat. Not to mention that he might not be a match for Mr. Niu. The key point was that he couldn't report back. Mr. Guan, you're not the only one who has something important to discuss with Senior Niu. Everyone said so. But rules are rules. Please. Fu Chun sent the guest off for the third time. I'm different from them. That's not right. Guan Zhongkai was startled and said with a face full of suspicion, I've been here for less than an hour. It seems like every one of them has been here for more than an hour. Could it be that Senior Niu is favoring one and discriminating against the others? Could it be that you don't like the people of world commerce? It's true that the people of world commerce are rich and envious. Yu Qianchou continued to drink his tea. Without a word, Fu Chun lifted the lid of the teacup, indicating for him to explain. He really treasured his words like gold. Fu Chun sighed inwardly. Why was he rushing to be ripped off? He had already explained the same words to different people over a dozen times, right? Mr. Guan, you've really misunderstood Senior Niu. Fu Chun sighed and said, actually it's for your own good. It's mainly to help you save money. So that you won't be unhappy after spending money. Save money for me? Guan Zhongkai had an expression that said the sun rose from the west. He asked in a neutral tone, what do you mean by that? I want to hear how it's for my own good. Chapter 551. Fu Chun looked at the boss who had a teasing expression and said bluntly, let me put it this way. The person before you also had 1 hour of talking time, but that person felt that talking to Senior Niu wasn't satisfying enough, so he paid for another hour of talking time. You see, if you also didn't feel satisfied enough, wouldn't you also have to pay for another hour of talking time? Isn't this saving you money and doing it for your own good? Yu Qianchou was amused when he heard this, but felt that something was wrong. He gulped down a mouthful of tea and remained expressionless. Guan Zhongkai turned to look at Yu Qianchou, then at Fu Chun in front of him. The muscles on his face twitched non-stop. He really wanted to kill this guy who was speaking so seriously. He felt that this kid was even more despicable than Yo Yid. He looked sincere but was actually treacherous. You mean that if I talk to Senior Niu again I need to spend more money and add another hour of time? Guan Zhongkai's tone was slightly cold. As a member of the World Commerce Association who did business with the world, he had seen black-hearted profiteers, but he had never seen such a black-hearted one. Senior Niu, time is precious. Don't talk about such meaningless things. Fu Chun sighed and said, Mr. Guan, why do you need to spend this money? I'm really doing it for your own good so that I won't offend you for no reason. You should go back. There are still many people waiting behind you. I'll send you off. Yu Qianchou looked at Fu Chun with satisfaction. Look at his eyesight. He had picked out a talent at first glance. She was truly someone of his generation. Only this kind of talent had a future in the cultivation world. It seemed that old fart Nongzhu was also like this. But look at how well he was doing. He was so envious of him. Fu Chun. Well done. These fellows from the big sects are all lowly people. They need to be taught a lesson. Go ahead and do it. I'll support everything. This boss specializes in taking care of these fellows who have their eyes on top of their heads. Yu Qianchou chuckled and transmitted his voice. Guan Zhongkai's expression really darkened. Go back? What a joke. He wasn't Master's biological son. How could he allow himself to make a fool of himself again and again? Was there still a way out now? He finally understood why those people who had gone out earlier had such dark expressions on their faces. I'll endure. Guan Zhongkai heaved a long sigh and without saying a word he took out another bag of spirit stones from his storage bag and handed it to Fu Chun saying, by another round of time 200,000 upper-grade spirit stones, count them clearly for me. Mr. Guan, why are you doing this? Senior Niu said that he really doesn't want to earn money that goes against his conscience. Fu Chun gently pushed back. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Once upon a time he would never be able to talk to a tribulation-passing realm expert of a famous sect like this. This bunch of arrogant fellows. Not to mention looking at them, they simply treated them like weeds. If they wanted to kill them they could do so with a wave of their hands. How many loose cultivators' bones were still silently crying in the wilderness? How many rogue cultivators had been forced into a state worse than pigs and dogs? Now that he had this opportunity and his boss had spoken up to support him, he would be letting himself down if he didn't do his best. Boss was right, a bunch of sluts. Guan Zhongkai handed the storage bag over again and said word by word, I did it voluntarily. The sentence made him want to cry. Was it really voluntary? It was 2F** king not voluntary, but there was really no other way. Unexpectedly, Fu Chun pushed the storage bag back and said in an embarrassed tone, Aren't you making things difficult for me? He offered 400,000 upper-grade spirit stones for the second round of time, and you only offered 200,000. If it's so little, who am I going to ask for it from? I can't afford it myself. 400,000? Guan Zhongkai suppressed his anger and said, "It was only 200,000 for the first round of time just now. Why did it double in an instant?" "Mr. Guan, it's really not just for you. Everyone is like this. The rules were set by Senior Niu," Fu Chun said helplessly. Guan Zhongkai glanced at Yu Qianqiu, then turned back and laughed angrily. "You don't even have a reason to raise the price just like that. Aren't you guys going too far?" "Mr. Guan, you can't say that," Fu Chun explained solemnly. "Look, just the time you're wasting Senior Niu's time is enough for 2 more people to come in and meet Senior Niu. Then the meeting fee would be 200,000, and if you buy the second round of time, it would also be 200,000. Together 400,000 is just right. Besides, no one is forcing you. If you're not willing, you can leave. I've already advised you to go back, but you... Brat, you're messing with me." Guan Zhongkai finally couldn't take it anymore and grabbed Fu Chun's clothes by his chest. His master was an early-stage soul formation expert, and his grandmaster was a late-stage soul formation expert. Furthermore, he was the chief disciple of the World Chamber of Commerce, the most powerful organization in the cultivation world. When had he ever suffered such a loss? Fu Chun looked at Yu Qianqiu with slight panic. After all, he had been suppressed by the despotic power of the large sects for too long, so he couldn't help but feel subconsciously afraid. Once someone made a move, he would more or less be a little afraid. "Oh, today you're the first to dare touch my people in front of me. The people from the World Chamber of Commerce are really something." The teacup in Yu Qianqiu's hand heavily slammed onto the tea table. With a cold humph, the terrifying aura contained within the black fire in his body instantly surged out. The temperature in the hall instantly dropped to freezing point. A boundless and ferocious icy aura instantly enveloped Guan Zhongkai's body. Despair, death, indifference, and all sorts of extremely negative emotions made Guan Zhongkai feel as if he had suffered a heavy blow. His face instantly turned pale and he let go of Fu Chun in a panic. He looked at Yu Qianqiu with a face full of fear and stammered, "Say, Senior, please calm down, there's something we can talk about." The taste of despair in the icy aura made it almost impossible for him to have any thoughts of resisting. At this moment, Yu Qianqiu was sitting there like the god of death from hell was staring at him. Fu Chun quivered and took a few steps back, breaking away from the heart-palpitating aura on Guan Zhongkai's body. He turned pale with fright as he looked at Boss. When he was grabbed by Guan Zhongkai, he felt that the terrifying aura that suddenly enveloped Guan Zhongkai's body came from Boss. It was a terrifying aura that made one's soul tremble with fear. Although that terrifying aura wasn't targeted at him, Fu Chun didn't doubt that this aura alone could kill him. It was too terrifying. For the first time, Fu Chun looked at Yu Qianqiu with an expression of extreme reverence. She didn't know how high this boss's cultivation was. The abilities that he revealed were more and more frightening each time. "Now you know there's something to talk about?" Yu Qianqiu made an exception and spoke without asking for money. However, this wasn't a good thing for Guan Zhongkai. He said in an abnormally cold tone, "You dare to touch my people in front of me, are you tired of living?" Just this sentence caused Fu Chun's eyes to slightly redden. It felt so good to have someone to protect and support her. Ever since she stepped into the cultivation world, she had never heard such heartwarming words. They were better than anything else. Misunderstanding, Senior. Misunderstanding. Guan Zhongkai stood there trembling. He wanted to teleport away from that terrifying aura, but he found that the true essence in his body seemed to have frozen. The netherworld ghost fire that could separate the human world and the netherworld was no joke. It was the rolling black fire that burned between the human and ghost worlds. It was a symbol of life and death for humans and ghosts. It should be known that even with Bai Chongqun's cultivation, he couldn't cross the netherworld fire sea, so its power could be imagined. When Yu Qianqiu was still in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, he could control the black fire's aura to deal with Ze, who was in the late stage of the tribulation passing stage. Now that his cultivation had soared to the middle stage of the tribulation passing stage, his ability to control the black fire's aura was not just a little bit better. After his aura locked onto Guan Zhongkai, he could sense his every move. He could increase the pressure at any time to prevent him from escaping, and he wouldn't be as careless as when he tortured Ze, causing her to faint on the spot. Of course, if Guan Zhongkai escaped before Yu Qianqiu's aura locked onto him, Yu Qianqiu wouldn't be able to do anything to him. After all, there was a huge difference in cultivation between the two of them. He wouldn't be able to catch up even if he wanted to. The key was that he was locked onto due to a moment of carelessness. On a run. With his cultivation it would be very difficult. If Yu Qianzhou wanted him dead now, it would be as easy as crushing an ant. Misunderstanding? I think you're used to being arrogant. Yu Qianzhou coldly snorted. Don't think that the world commerce is that great. There are some people and some things that your world commerce can't afford to offend. Do you believe that even if I kill you now, Yin Baikong won't be able to do anything to me? To be honest, with the new and old hatred, Yu Qianzhou really wanted to kill him now. But for the sake of long-term plans he had to let him live for the time being. I believe you. Guan Zhongkai heard a glimmer of hope in his words and hurriedly grabbed onto it. Senior, please be magnanimous. He had completely given in. Magnanimous? This hand of mine is really expensive, and it's not just an ordinary kind of expensive. Yu Qianzhou's face was cold and unyielding with killing intent. He didn't mean to scare him, but he did it on purpose. He slowly said, "You should have known when you entered this door that my words are precious. Being forced by you to make an exception. You tell me how you want to settle this debt." Junior is willing to offer 1 million high-grade spirit stones as an apology to Senior. Guan Zhongkai hurriedly followed up. He was now 100% sure that this Niuyid was a soul formation expert because the aura he emitted was too terrifying. He could actually control him to the point where he couldn't run even if he wanted to. Even his own master couldn't do that. Just this powerful aura alone was so powerful. What would happen if they fought? So he didn't feel wronged calling him Junior at all. 1 million. Isn't your life a little too cheap? Yu Qianzhou suddenly shouted. Do you want money or your life? Damn it. Damn it. Guan Zhongkai was already forcing himself to stand up. The sudden shout almost scared him to the point of kneeling down. He trembled and said, Senior, how much do you want? How much do I want? I'm afraid you can't afford what I want. Yu Qianzhou gently crossed his legs and pointed at the storage bag on his waist. I won't make things difficult for you, lest I say that you're bullying a junior. I've always been a kind person and not a greedy person. I don't want more, just take as much as you have in this storage bag. Chapter 552. The main hall quietened down. Guan Zhongkai stood there dumbfounded and speechless, his face ashen. It wasn't that he didn't have money in his storage bag, there was more than 100 million. That 100 million was the reward for capturing Yu Qianzhou from the Chamber of Commerce. It wasn't his personal money, so how could he give it to him for his own use? The consequence of using it up was that he wouldn't be able to explain himself. He was filled with regret. He regretted not holding back just now. It was just a few irritating words. Why did he have to make a move? Now that he thought about it, it might really have something to do with him acting like a big boss outside. Now that he had finally met a tough opponent. Senior Niu. Guan Zhongkai begged in despair. I do have a lot of spirit stones in my storage bag, but that's the Chamber of Commerce's money. If I give it all to you, it's no different from killing me. It's better. He didn't say, it's better to kill me now in the end. He didn't doubt that this Niuyid was a good person. In the cultivation world, someone who dared to call out his grandmaster Yin Baikong by name wouldn't care about the life and death of a tribulation passing stage cultivator. Moreover, from this person's actions, he wasn't just a normal person. Normal people wouldn't dare to brazenly extort people from other countries. As expected, Yu Qianzhou snorted with a faint smile. Don't talk about the Chamber of Commerce in front of me. That's not something I care about. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. After I kill you, the money in your storage bag will still be mine. Who knows, there might be some other valuable things. Yu Qianzhou suddenly stood up. Guan Zhongkai hurriedly begged for mercy. I'll give it. Senior, please don't be angry. I'll give it to you. Without another word, he quickly rummaged through the storage bag for spirit stones. Then he took out another storage bag and handed it over with both hands. Yu Qianzhou grabbed it and scanned it with his divine sense. After a rough estimate, he estimated that there were about 105 million high-grade spirit stones. He weighed the bag in his hand and said, It's all here? You're not hiding anything, are you? She slowly walked to his side. Guan Zhongkai was shocked and scared witless. He thought that Miao Yi was going to go back on his word after taking the money. He knelt down on the ground and said fearfully, "Senior Niu, you are a senior expert, you can't go back on your word. I didn't even leave a single spirit stone. If you don't believe me, I can swear to the heavens. You can take it for examination." He hurriedly untied the storage pouch on his waist, indicating that he was willing to be examined. Fu Chun, who was standing to the side, shook her head slightly. It turned out that the so-called experts at the final stage of the crossing calamity stage were nothing more than this. They were usually arrogant because they had never met anyone powerful. Actually, in the end, he was no different from an ordinary person. Look at how he was wagging his tail and begging for pity. He was still so unbearable. Yu Qianchou subconsciously wanted to take his storage bag and take a look. He stretched out his hand, but halfway through he waved it away and laughed. "Look at what you're saying. If I didn't trust you, would I let you take the initiative? I'm not that narrow-minded. Get up." The cold and terrifying aura that enveloped Guan Zhongkai's body instantly disappeared. Guan Zhongkai slowly stood up as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He cupped his hands with a miserable expression and said, "Junior will take his leave." "Wait." Yu Qianchou turned his head to look at him. Although he was now free from the shackles, he didn't think that he could escape if Niu Yi didn't let him. His whole body trembled and froze on the spot. "Don't be nervous. I have something to tell you." Yu Qianchou smiled as he put away the storage pouch. Guan Zhongkai put on a long face and said, "Senior's words are precious. I really don't have any more spirit stones on me. I don't dare to waste any more of your time." The fee for chatting was too high. He really couldn't bear it. Yu Qianchou was startled. He understood what Guan Zhongkai meant. So it turned out that Guan Zhongkai was afraid that he would extort him again. Slightly embarrassed, he waved his hand and said, "I'm not that greedy. This time it's free." "Thank you, Senior. Junior is all ears." Guan Zhongkai stood there woodenly with his hands behind his back. Yu Qianchou smiled and asked, "I heard that your master Sikongju has already led people to Gold Casting City?" "Why, yes." Guan Zhongkai looked at him in bewilderment. He didn't know what Niu Yi wanted to do. "When you go back, you can tell your master Sikongju everything that happened here. If he's unhappy, tell him to come and find me." I don't dare." Guan Zhongkai put on a look of fear and trepidation. It'd be a miracle if he didn't dare. "I'm afraid that in order to escape punishment, he'll push all the blame onto me." Yu Qianchou glanced at him but didn't expose him. He continued, "Go back and tell your master that I know why he's here. Today there are so many people who came to find me. They're all here for the same reason as your master." Finally getting to the main topic, Guan Zhongkai woke up and hurriedly said, "Senior Niu, I'm here on master's orders. Please come to Gold Casting City and meet my master." "You're only saying it now? What were you doing before?" Yu Qianchou rolled his eyes and said, "I'm not going." Guan Zhongkai swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. He couldn't afford to offend him. He thought to himself, "You're the one talking nonsense. You didn't even give me a chance to say it." Yu Qianchou waved his hand and said, "I won't beat around the bush. All the countries want to recruit me, but I'm not related to any of you. Talking about friendship is nonsense. In short, whoever gives me the most money will be able to invite me. As for the World Commerce Association's name, it's still a little small and can't suppress me. Let your master not worry. 10 days later, all the countries will send people to report their base price. I'll go with whoever offers the highest price." "Alright. I'm still busy here, so I won't keep you. Send the guest off." "Please." Fu Chun raised her hand and gestured for him to leave. Guan Zhongkai bade farewell and quickly left. He didn't want to stay here a minute longer. Yu Qianchou strolled to the door and watched the two of them leave. Inside the courtyard, Merlin could faintly hear Fu Chun say, "Mr. Guan, after you go out, you must announce the rules inside to everyone. Otherwise there will be more misunderstandings." He didn't hear Guan Zhongkai's reply. After Guan Zhongkai came out, the people outside the courtyard were surprised to find that the people who came out before them all had black faces, but this guy's face was pale. Even Qin Jiaxing, who was guarding the door, couldn't help but take a few more glances. "The next one can pay and go in." Qin Jiaxing raised his hand and pointed at Yulan Do in front of him. Yulan Do grabbed Guan Zhongkai and asked, Brother Guan, what's wrong? But what happened inside? What happened? He almost lost his life. Guan Zhongkai was scared just thinking about it. His gaze swept across the crowd. There were even some people who had grudges with him. He thought to himself, damn it. If they were to be unlucky, then everyone would be unlucky. Why should they tell them the rules inside? He wasn't wrong to think this way. If there were only a few people who were cheated, then these few people would definitely be unlucky when they returned. But if everyone was cheated, then they could only blame Yo Yid for being too cunning and not everyone else. If a few of them were idiots, then it was understandable. There was no reason to say that everyone was an idiot. In this way, the law wouldn't punish everyone. At least everyone would receive a lighter punishment because it had nothing to do with incompetence or incompetence. He wanted to leave, but he hesitated when he saw Yulan Do. After all, their friendship wasn't shallow. Thus, he grabbed him and said, "Come with me, I have something to tell you." He wanted to tell Yulan Do alone. He didn't want others to benefit from it. Qin Jiaxing glanced at them coldly and didn't rush them. He thought about what his boss had said when he was strolling in the plum forest. I won't play with schemes today. This time I'm playing with people's hearts. I'll openly set up a big formation here. Let's see who can break my formation. This formation doesn't take people's lives. It only discerns people's hearts. Anyone who enters the formation will be able to see through the method to break it. However, those who are selfish, I hope they won't disappoint me. At that time, when Fu Chun saw his bleak and sighing face, she was puzzled and said, "Boss, if we can really earn money, you should be happy. From your tone, why do you sound so depressed? Earning money is secondary. You won't understand even if I explain." Boss shook his head and sighed. "I've killed many people, many people. Maybe in the future more people will die because of me. I just want to know if what I did was wrong. If people's hearts aren't what they used to be, then it doesn't matter. I know what to do in the future." The two of them looked at each other. They didn't know how many people their boss had killed. Was it a few dozen or a few hundred? However, the two of them could hear that their boss was a little guilty. Fu Chun asked curiously, "Then why do you hope that someone can break your big formation? Won't this make you feel uneasy?" Boss glanced at the two of them and smiled faintly. He didn't explain much and slowly walked into the hall. As he walked, he softly muttered, "Riding a sword to traverse the vast heaven and earth, white bones like a mountain, startling birds. Why do you have to do this?" The two of them didn't understand why their boss suddenly became so sentimental. In short, they were confused and didn't know what he meant. However, at that time, Qin Jiaxing and Fu Chun didn't really believe that this method could make money. They estimated that at most 1 or 2 unlucky people would be enough. If this method could make a lot of money, then everyone in the world was an idiot. However, the result made the two of them speechless. They really admired their boss from the bottom of their hearts. It was such a simple setup, but everyone rushed to give money to him. They couldn't even be chased away. This wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that those people who suffered losses didn't have anyone to threaten them. No matter how many times they urged them to reveal the truth, they wouldn't do it. Although they were all angry, they really kept their mouths shut. They couldn't wait for everyone to suffer losses. The two of them looked on coldly from the side, but they were sighing in their hearts. They finally understood why their boss said this was a big formation. Why he said this formation didn't take people's lives but only discerned their hearts. Sure enough, it was all because of selfishness. This person's selfishness really made people speechless. Yulan Do was holding a storage bag in his hand and was about to hand it over to Qin Jiaxing. After Guan Zhongkai's disturbance, he didn't know whether to leave or stay. He dawdled there and the others couldn't take it anymore. The people behind him shouted, "Yulan Do, are you going in or not? If you want to go in, then be straightforward. If you don't want to go in, then leave. Don't block the way." Yulan Do lightly shook off Guan Zhongkai's hand that was holding him. He pointed behind him unhappily and said, "Brother Guan, you've finished your business. You should let me go back as soon as possible." What he meant was that it wasn't easy for so many people to queue up. "If you pull me away now, won't I be at the back of the queue when I return? Aren't you harming me?" You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.